Stop overthinking your relationship. Break the cycle of anxious rumination to nurture love, trust, and connection with your partner. Introduction: Love's quiet enemy. Once upon a time, two people fell in love. Together, they traveled, shared meals, went on adventures, had sex, talked, cried, fought, made up, and revealed fears and longings. Here I'll name these people you and me. You was confident, though unmotivated, so being around me inspired and energized you, providing a sense of purpose. Me was ambitious, though socially reserved, so being around you helped me relax and take risks. As a couple, for a while, they felt complete. After several months, they moved in together. Me received a promotion and worked late. You made lots of plans with friends. They touched less, talked less, and ate meals on the fly. They got busy, looked at their phones, started sleeping in separate beds, and rarely had time for adventures or trips. They worried about the future, controlled each other, and doubted their love. They grew resentful. It didn't look like they were going to make it as a couple. I wish I could say the plotline of this story is unusual. But it's not. I hear it often as a couples therapist, even when the details are different. So how do love stories with passionate, hopeful beginnings like this go wrong? Here's how couples get derailed by overthinking. In romantic relationships, overthinking gradually day after day, month after month interferes with a couple's access to essential relational resources and skills. It shortens their bandwidth for awareness, empathy, curiosity, and whatever is happening in their own hearts. Basically, overthinking turns into a bad cognitive habit. It starts with a thought. This thought and opinion, misinterpretation, prediction, or judgment leads to more thoughts. Perhaps some of these examples may be familiar to you. When one partner comes home late, the other one thinks they're neglecting me. Work is more important than I am. If one of them doesn't initiate lovemaking, the other one thinks we're on our way to a sexless marriage. I knew this would happen. If one of them is distracted at the dinner table, the other one thinks they're bored. They have nothing to say to me. I can't believe it's come to this. If one of them forgets to ask a follow-up question after a doctor's visit, the other one thinks they're selfish and insensitive. I'm alone in this relationship. If thoughts like these arise when a partner feels threatened, then similar thoughts may follow. Reflexive, negative thoughts fueled by anxiety don't just pop up and go away. They multiply. They may even become thought pinwheels, spinning into what is known as rumination in the mental health world. Each partner's ruminative thoughts distort their perceptions of their mate. Over time, as the distortions build into stories about the other person, partners stop opening up, relating directly, and sharing themselves. They lose touch with the adventure of love. It's hard to blame couples who, like the two people in this story, find themselves losing hope in their relationship due to overthinking. In our workplaces, schools, and communities, thinking is valued more than openness to experience. Thinking is viewed as our most valuable human asset, the mainspring of civilization, culture, art, psychology, science, and literature. As a result, many of us are skilled overthinkers by the time we enter romantic relationships. Love and life are uncertain. When we can't predict the future, don't know the solution to a problem, or get overwhelmed, filtering our experiences through stories and narratives gives us a sense of agency and control. In a culture where thinking is glorified, it becomes the cheapest and most accessible mind-altering substance. Naturally, overthinking tends to be a couple's go-to coping strategy when partners get scared, feel lost, or can't figure out what to do. In my therapy practice, I've seen overthinking erode love between people whenever it operates unseen and unchallenged. My vantage point isn't solely professional either. As a former chronic ruminator with a preference for doubt and self-pity cycles, I've suffered the destructive effects of overthinking firsthand. Following a painful divorce in my late 20s, I didn't have much faith in healthy partnerships or in my ability to be in one myself. Now, over 2 decades later, I know differently. Happy love stories are created, not stumbled upon. Not only have I lived the changes that come with enduring rumination in the relationship my husband and I have developed over the last 17 years, but I've also helped hundreds of couples foster deeper intimacy and safer, more fulfilling connections by doing this work. If you've picked up this book, chances are you've seen the damage anxious overthinking can do in a relationship. If so, you're in the right place to learn a better way. How relationship rumination works against you. Have you ever observed a colorful little beach ball pop up on your computer screen, usually when something has gone wrong? Macintosh users refer to it as the spinning beach ball of death or sometimes the marble of doom. If you've witnessed this endlessly spinning rainbow pinwheel in action, you know it's a sign of trouble. You may have to force quit your software program and lose some of your recent work. You could end up spending hours on the phone with tech support. The spinning beach ball of death is a nifty metaphor for overthinking. When overthinking interrupts the natural flow of your life, it's also a sign of trouble. Unlike a beach ball, rumination cycles aren't colorful. They're dreary and predictable, made up of repetitive negative thoughts instead of rainbow colors. The more they spin, the more space they take up in your mind. They can spin so fast and take up so much space that it gets hard to see past them. It's easy to fall into the trap of assuming their anxiety-provoking content is true. When you ruminate, your attention and energy get siphoned off into repetitive negative thinking. The catch with doing it in a relationship is this: overthinking doesn't only deplete and squander your attention and energy. It affects your partner too. Although rumination cycles seem to occur privately in your own mind, they spin in a relational field you both co-create. Overthinking has an impact, regardless of whether it happens in one mind or two. It stokes frustrations and insecurities and influences communication and behavior. If partners spin dual, you might call them dueling rumination cycles, troubles will intensify. Each person risks seeing the other through a haze of negativity. Caught in the crossfire created by the negative emotional charge of dueling rumination cycles, partners bristle and grow defensive. I use the term relationship rumination to describe this type of overthinking. In co-rumination, a related concept, two people ruminate together about the same thing. Relationship rumination is a broader term meant to describe a general pattern of repetitive, negative overthinking engaged in by one or both partners that erodes trust and sabotages love. In this book, I'll use the terms rumination, overthinking, repetitive negative thinking, passive thinking, and relationship rumination to describe variations of the same phenomenon, passive, unwanted overthinking that happens so much and so often it erodes a couple's bond. Rumination has been linked to eating disorders, anxiety, depression, PTSD, substance abuse disorders, and OCD. Not only is it a symptom of unhappiness, it's also a cause. A 2013 study of 32,827 people done by the University of Liverpool in England exposes rumination as a high predictor of mental health problems than biological factors, social factors, or traumatic life events. Kinderman et al. 2013. Tough life events, a history of mental illness, poverty, and interpersonal problems lead to poor mental health. At the same time, these things lead there indirectly to rumination. In other words, circumstances become serious mental health problems only when we can't stop thinking about them in unhealthy ways. This isn't merely an interesting fact supported by research. If rumination leads to depression and anxiety, then decreasing it can do the opposite, increase your well-being. You can't change your past or your genetic makeup, but you can change how much you ruminate. This isn't to say you should ignore painful circumstances. That will promote mental illness by denying reality. But if you can channel your energies into more helpful coping strategies and thinking styles, you have a better chance of overcoming obstacles. A systematic review of 19 studies focused on reducing rumination conducted between 2002 and 2012 found that mindfulness-based and cognitive behavioral interventions can effectively help reduce rumination. Questioned in Croppy 2013. Less rumination leads to happier love stories. When overthinking combines with emotionally charged needs and fears in an intimate adult bond, you can end up reliving the same conflict with your partner over the course of many years, though it may disguise itself in novel forms. You may even hear some couples talk about having the same fight they had on their first date a decade later. Awareness of your repetitive negative thinking can reduce the intensity of conflicts or even diffuse them completely. The differences between partners don't make or break a relationship. What does is how partners think about these differences. How to use this book: if you can't see how something hurts you, it's easier to keep doing it. Many couples don't see how rumination erodes their connection. This book will help you recognize the toll overthinking takes so you can reconnect with what matters most. In the first chapter, you'll explore relationship rumination in depth, what it is, why it's overlooked, and how it ties into early attachment fears. In Chapter 2, you'll dive into the concept of a relationship field along with your attachment style pairing or ASP. In Chapters 3 through 7, you'll get to know your mindset and identify your thoughts, rumination cycles, triggers, warning lights, and dead-end scripts. You'll also be introduced to Slow, a 4-step practice that can help you shift from thinking about what's upsetting you to being with what's happening in the moment. Slow stands for seeing, labeling, opening, and welcoming. In Chapter 8, you'll review practical tips for applying and using Slow. In Chapter 9, you'll learn important preventive, palliative, and curative relationship care skills to nurture your bond. You'll also create your own personalized relationship first aid kit. Exercises will guide you to reflect on and apply the skills you'll be mastering here to your own life. 10 different couple stories have been woven through these chapters. They're meant to highlight problems arising from relationship rumination as well as ways of handling them. Although I've drawn them from my work as a therapist, the couples featured in these pages are fictional. Take what serves you from their struggles and successes and disregard what doesn't. Most of the exercises in this book invite you to write responses or track thoughts. I recommend you get a blank journal for this purpose so you have everything in one place and can easily revisit it later. The quizzes, prompts, and assessments you'll find in these pages are not diagnostic tools. They're meant to guide you and stimulate reflection. You'll find worksheet versions of most of the exercises online at http://www.newharbinger.com/50034. If you're single, you'll benefit from practicing Slow and working through the solo and joint exercises on your own. These can be done alone with slight adjustments. Focus on your relationship with yourself and examine the role overthinking has played in past relationships. Moments of overwhelm, frustration, and anxiety are inevitable when you're learning new things, looking at patterns, reflecting on yourself, and exploring your personal history. If you and your partner do this work together, do it in your own way and at your own pace. I encourage what I call adult timeouts, more on these in Chapter 9, as a form of palliative relationship care. Take adult timeouts if you find yourselves disagreeing or arguing. You'll probably have different motivation levels for reading chapters, doing exercises, and using tools and techniques. That's totally normal. Taking an adult timeout means separating from each other for a brief time. This can help you shift your attention away from a conflict, regain perspective, and calm down. Mishandling vulnerable information your partner reveals in trusting moments, or using it as proof of negative beliefs or judgments, won't help either of you. Shaming, punishing, manipulating, or controlling your partner undermines safety, making it harder to share and collaborate. If you catch yourself engaging in these or any other relationship sabotaging behaviors, take responsibility for your missteps and repair. Skip ahead to Chapter 9 if you need to, and read about what goes into a successful repair so you can start practicing it now. Discomfort isn't always a bad thing. Difficult feelings, sensations, impulses, and insights will arise when you no longer rely on relationship rumination to bring relief in anxiety-provoking situations. Some of what surfaces will be unsettling. This is because exploration is risky. When you face aspects of yourself you've avoided, denied, or buried under repetitive negative thinking, there are bound to be risks. But avoiding exploration is also risky. In Helen Keller's words, avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. Keller, 1940-51. In other words, ignoring relationship rumination isn't a safe choice either. Overthinking in your relationship carries its own set of costs, risks, and consequences. These may include anxiety, joylessness, a nagging sense of something missing, and existential angst. Doing what you've always done because you've always done it fuels disconnection, resentment, and unhappiness. The goal isn't avoiding discomfort. It's getting to the root of your relationship problems while remaining curious, open, and connected through difficult moments. If there's abuse, mental illness, trauma, or addiction in your relationship, seek trusted guidance and support. In some cases, mood or attention deficit disorders may interfere with your ability to do certain practices and exercises. If you felt sad, fearful, irritable, forgetful, hopeless, or unmotivated for more than a few weeks in a row, consider talking with a therapist or other mental health professional. No self-help book can be a stand-in for supportive mental health treatment, couples therapy, or psychopharmacology when that's what you need. If you and your partner have little or no foundation of safety in your relationship, be honest with yourself about where you are. As long as hostility interferes with caring, respectful speaking and listening, digging deeper without a professional guiding you can backfire and fuel conflicts. The same goes for strong-arming your partner into working through this book when they don't want to. Instead, work through it separately. Consider revisiting the joint exercises together later. Or else make peace with working through this book on your own without your partner's active participation. Understanding more about relationship rumination and doing the exercises and practices on your own can still benefit you greatly as a couple. Intentional speaking and listening. When we speak to people in our everyday lives, we usually focus on conveying information or eliciting the response we want. In everyday speaking and listening, it's also common to multitask as we share and listen. We talk into a headset while pushing a grocery cart and scanning shelves. We respond to emails during a lecture. We ring up items on a cash register while chatting about the weather. We navigate traffic as our partner relays an anecdote. Our attention is divided. Intentional speaking and listening is different from what you do when you communicate with other people while you're multitasking. In this book's joint exercises, you'll be invited to assume the roles of speaker and listener. The speaker-listener format has been a core component of cognitive behavioral couple therapy CBCT for several decades, and before that of behavioral couple therapy BCT, Borcom et al. 2015. When your entire focus is on sharing reflections or on listening to what your partner shares, your attention is qualitatively different than normal. Below, you'll find a list of your responsibilities for each role. Responsibilities when speaking share you. Don't talk about yourself as if you were reporting. Instead, share what's rooted in your body, what's true for you right now. Don't withhold what's vulnerable or uncomfortable for you to admit. Risk disclosing your imperfections and flaws. Own your reality. If something your partner says or does sets off a defensive reaction or a mental pinwheel of negative thoughts, reorient your attention to the here and now. Resist the temptation to slip into theories or stories about your partner unless you preface them with "what I make up about you is the story I tell myself about you," so keep the focus on yourself when you speak, using as statements. Connect with what's happening inside you right now. For example, I feel, my interpretation is, I have an impulse to, I'm conscious of. Remain present focused rather than past or future focused. It's harder to get caught up in rumination cycles of blame, control, worry, doubt, or self-pity when you're in the present. If thoughts spin, try to see the content of these thoughts and to recognize them as thoughts. If you're sharing about something that happened in the past, pay attention to how you're experiencing your recollection of it in your body now. Let yourself not know. Share open-ended, personal reflections over absolute truths and certainties. Allow yourself not to know rather than presenting yourself as all-knowing. Responsibilities when listening ground yourself. Quiet your own mental chatter, stories, interpretations, and ruminative thinking by sensing where your body makes contact with the chair or the floor. Remind yourself of your partner's fundamental goodness and humanity. Remain humble when you're tempted to believe you know more about who they are than they do. Resist the urge to criticize, judge, nitpick, negate, control, or dismiss. Notice and release the impulse to listen selectively or distort your partner's words to reinforce a cherished opinion you hold of them. Focus your full attention on your partner. When you get distracted by your own thoughts or reactions, recommit to your role as listener. Remain curious. There's always more to your partner than meets the eye. Listen with an open mind. Trust and stay in the process. Settle into the unknown of whatever is emerging, as unsettling as this may feel. Surrender control for the time being. Allow what's true and real in this one moment you're living to be enough. Sometimes, what your partner shares will raise your anxiety. If this happens, make a mental note of it and feeling some anxiety. Do what you can to soothe yourself. You'll learn ways to do this in upcoming chapters. Avoid jumping to conclusions, fixing things, rescuing your partner, or seeing their discomfort as your issue to solve. In the role of listener, you support your partner by being with them as they are, without trying to change them. Thinking about vs. being with, I'm going to invite you to make a small but radical shift in how you approach internal and external experiences, particularly the ones that set off rumination cycles. You will be pivoting from thinking about moments that unsettle you to being with them. Most of our thinking about muscles are overdeveloped. In contrast, our being with muscles are underused. If our ability to think about our experiences were represented by one leg and our ability to be with our experiences were represented by the other, most of us would hop around like kids during potato sack races. Our thinking about legs would be oversized and hypermuscular, while our being with legs would be puny and feeble. Being with events, others, and our own emotions, sensations, and impulses isn't something most of us have been explicitly taught how to do. When an event takes you off guard and you feel something emotionally or physically unnerving, do you consciously spend time being with your inner experience? If your answer is no, then you're a normal 21st century human. Most of us don't consciously choose to be with unsettling experiences. Instead, we try to get rid of them. Or else we assume our ability to be with all of our experiences is a given, like our ability to breathe. Except it isn't. Being with is a capacity. The thinking messages we received as children turn us into adults who struggle to be with ourselves, people, events, and experiences we don't understand or aren't prepared for. Modern-day technology doesn't help us develop our being with capacity either. It puts our thinking on hyperdrive with powerful devices that do many wonderful things but can also stoke our relationship rumination. With the help of advanced technology, we've gotten good at thinking about, solving, and managing increasingly complex problems and relationships. At the same time, we've become people who don't always know how to be with ourselves and others. We've become chronically purposeful. With so much to do and to think about, we don't have much time to be with the rich kaleidoscope of experiences that make up our inner world. Why is this a problem in romantic relationships? When we can't really be with feelings and experiences, we lose our natural attunement to ourselves, our partners, and our lives. Despite living in close quarters, even loving couples end up feeling lonely, misunderstood, and isolated from one another. Their shrunken being with capacity imprisons them within their own private, invisible thought bubbles of fear, worry, judgment, and insecurity. Being with yourself and your partner is a radical act. Shifting from thinking about to being with can help you see when you're hopping around on overthinking so you can shift your weight to being. Doing this regularly will strengthen your being with muscles and help you achieve more balance. Over time, you'll toggle more flexibly between thinking about and being with a wider range of experiences in the here and now. Maybe you can already sense the difference between these two approaches. When you think about something upsetting, you create distance between you and what you're thinking about. You generate more thoughts about it. But this distancing strategy has a cost. Even if your thoughts are interesting and engaging, they are not the same thing as direct experience. Distancing yourself from reality with repetitive, negative thinking feeds rumination. When you choose to be with experiences, you get closer to what's uncomfortable for you. You also get closer to life. The embodied knowing you gain from a direct connection to what's happening in the present can bring all aspects of you into alignment far more so than repetitive, negative thoughts. Solo exercise, making the shift in a journal, make 2 columns and label them, thinking about then being with. Under the thinking about column, write I'm thinking about followed by a brief description of something that upset you in your relationship recently. You might write, my partner's grumpiness in the thinking about column. Then, under the being with column, write I'm being with followed by the same brief description of the same event. Repeat this process a few times with different situations or events that have upset you. When you're done, read the first sentence you wrote under the thinking about column aloud. Notice how it feels to link this upsetting item with the thinking about approach. Then, read the sentence you wrote under the being with column aloud. Notice how it feels to link this upsetting item with the being with approach. Solo exercise, being and thinking messages checklist. As children, we were taught life lessons by parents, caregivers, teachers, authorities, and the media. This exercise will help you perceive whether you were taught to mostly be with your experiences or to mostly think about them. In a journal, organize the messages you received under 2 columns, one titled Being Messages, the other titled Thinking Messages. You may have received these messages directly through spoken words or commands, or indirectly through behaviors you saw modeled by important people in your life. Write down any additional messages you received related to being or thinking under the appropriate heading. For a PDF worksheet of this exercise, joint exercise, reflections on being and thinking, review the being and thinking messages checklist and circle the top 3 thinking messages you received growing up. Reflect on the following questions or write your answers in a journal. If you like, share what you've discovered, referring to the speaker and listener responsibilities above. What did you notice about the number of being messages you receive as compared to thinking messages? Do you remember where, or from whom, you got each of the 3 messages you circled? Do you remember when each of these messages was imparted your age? How has each of these messages impacted your approach to relationship challenges? You may be wondering, would a book on overthinking make us overthink our relationship more than we already do? Some version of this type of concern usually precedes challenging the status quo or making a change. In fact, this is a good example of the beginning of a rumination cycle. Here are other versions of this concern. Why can't I accept the way things are and just be happy? Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. Other people have it tougher than I do. What if we end up making things worse by trying to make them better? The purpose of this book is to help you stop overthinking, not to encourage more of it. When you reflect on different concepts and themes through exercises, journal prompts, or reflections you share with your partner, the type of thinking you'll be doing won't be the same thing as overthinking. Each time you reflect or think about your thinking, in order to gain a better understanding of cognitive patterns, you're drawing on healthy thinking skills, adaptive self-reflection, and metacognition. In this case, more on these in Chapter 9. Overthinking and rumination, on the other hand, are anxious reactions to triggers. There's a lot at stake when anxious or unhappy couples maintain the status quo, minimizing, ignoring, or denying the negative impact of overthinking on their love story. To stop ruminating, I'll be inviting you to do some conscious, healthy thinking about your overthinking. The more you understand overthinking, the better equipped you'll be to do less of it. Now that you know the costs and consequences of ignoring overthinking, are you ready to defeat love's quiet enemy? By turning the page, you're answering yes. Chapter 1. What is relationship rumination? Ever since William lost his job 6 weeks ago, the moment he wakes up, a rumination cycle begins. I can't live on my savings forever, he worries. It's impossible to find work at my age. My colleagues probably think I'm a loser. What if I end up homeless and destitute? Some days, William is able to cheer himself up, ask friends for help, and research his job options. Most days, though, he lapses into rumination cycles centered on predictable, painful themes. If a job interview goes poorly or colleagues don't respond to his emails fast enough, William ruminates about being unemployable. When he thinks about his past, he recalls his failures and minimizes his successes. His negative thinking undermines his self-confidence. He convinces himself he can't rely on his network or reach out for job leads. Now let's imagine William in a romantic relationship in the same situation. I can't live on my savings forever, he worries, listening to the sound of Theo humming in the shower. My colleagues are probably ignoring my emails on purpose. William lies in bed staring at the ceiling while Theo, a well-paid graphic designer, gets dressed for work. His rumination pinwheel spins. What's going to happen to me? Is my career over? Because he's in a committed relationship, thoughts also arise about his boyfriend. It's just a matter of time before Theo breaks up with me. He sees me as a burden. I bet he regrets moving in together. Have a good day, Theo calls from the doorway. Easy for you to say, William mutters. You have a job. As Theo drives into the city, he finds himself daydreaming about one of his attractive, successful exes. Why did I end up moving in with William anyway? Theo wonders. He takes everything so seriously. What's the point of living with someone who can't stop worrying all the time? Without either of them knowing what has happened, William's rumination cycle has touched off a dueling pinwheel in Theo. General rumination vs. relationship rumination. General rumination is sometimes referred to as negative thinking, worrying, or brooding. In academic circles, it's called negative self-referential processing, or NSRP Menin and Fresco 2013. General rumination is probably the kind of rumination you've heard people refer to in casual conversation. It's an unhealthy cognitive style made up of repetitive thoughts rooted mostly in past events. These thoughts center around situations we regret and can't change. General rumination can contribute to depression and anxiety, decrease your motivation, and erode your self-confidence. Although relationship rumination is similar to general rumination, it's also different in important ways, as William's story shows. Think of general rumination as the equivalent of a bicycle. One person rides it. Relationship rumination, on the other hand, is like a tandem bicycle. You ride general rumination by yourself, but you both ride relationship rumination. Tandem bicycles have twice the opportunities for conflicted agendas, backpedaling, and poor weight distribution. On a tandem bicycle, when partners sync their pedaling, the bicycle moves forward smoothly and swiftly. If one partner lurches sideways, though, the results can be disastrous. And guess what happens if one partner pedals without realizing their chain has fallen off its ring? The other person must pedal twice as hard to keep the bicycle moving. If both chains fall off and partners continue pedaling without getting any traction, it's only a matter of time before the bicycle topples over. This is what happens when partners ruminate. Just as with general rumination, the more you overthink in your relationship, the more your negative thoughts will influence your mood and behaviors. But relationship rumination doesn't impact you alone. Repetitive, negative thinking pollutes the physical, mental, and emotional space you share with the partner. It leaks out of your mind. This happens in three ways: expressively, through toxic omissions, and energetically. Expressive leaks even when our thoughts seem hidden. We communicate them in nonverbal ways. They color the ways we express ourselves, whether we mean them to or not. They transmit through our word choices, actions, behaviors, gestures, and facial expressions, and how we phrase ideas. They are revealed in the topics we focus on or ignore. When Lisette sees a mother hugging her toddler on a playground, she's reminded of her own mother, who is undergoing chemotherapy for breast cancer. She also starts thinking about how much she wants a child. When she gets home, she shares this experience with Manuel, tears welling up in her eyes. Manuel gets up and leaves the room, muttering, "I'll get some tissues." One of Lisette's familiar rumination pinwheels starts spinning. It's pointless to share anything with him. He's not interested. I can't rely on him to listen to me or understand what I need. He probably doesn't even want kids. He's in his own world. This particular pinwheel makes it hard for Lisette to see how much Manuel actually does care about her. When he returns with tissues, Lisette avoids eye contact and says flatly, "Thanks, did I do something wrong?" Manuel asks, puzzled. Lisette shakes her head. "I'm just tired," she says. "I'm going to bed." Sensitive partners will notice our ruminative thinking more often than less sensitive partners. They pick up on the emotional charge in the words we use when we speak, in our body language when we move, in our facial expressions, and in our behaviors. All partners, even less sensitive ones, will notice it some of the time. Your shared connection taps you into the subtle and not so subtle energy shifts created by your thoughts. Toxic omission leaks. Your ruminative thoughts can spread through acts of omission. An act of omission is any time you stifle or withhold your authentic self. When you try to control your partner's reactions and responses in an otherwise healthy relationship by curating or hiding important information, you create toxic omissions. If you act like you're listening when you're distracted, you're leaking toxic omissions. You're robbing your partner of data they need to make an informed choice about whether or not to continue speaking. You're also leaking toxic omissions when you buy into repetitive, negative thoughts about the need to withhold the truth rather than share something difficult honestly. Margot meets an attractive colleague for a glass of wine after work without telling her girlfriend Carrie. She rationalizes her choice to keep the meeting a secret. It's best if Carrie doesn't know everything I do. Privacy isn't the same thing as secrecy. This way she won't get jealous. It's not like I'm having an affair. She'd only blow it out of proportion. When Margot arrives home from work, she hugs Carrie, saying, "I'm happy to see you. I was expecting you sooner," Carrie murmurs. "You don't sound very happy to see me," Margot teases. "Of course I am," Carrie says, puzzled by her own sadness. Energy leaks. One of the most potent ways our overthinking leaks out of our minds is in the form of energy. We get a vibe we can't explain. There's a contradiction between our partner's words and how they appear, or between what we want to believe and what we sense and observe. Thoughts manifest in brain waves as a form of electromagnetic energy and therefore have a mass, albeit very small, -2020. Is it too far-fetched to suppose that our thoughts, a subtle form of energy, don't vanish completely when we think them? Maybe. But according to the first law of thermodynamics, energy can only be converted, not destroyed. If you've ever rubbed a balloon against your forearm, you've likely noticed an invisible charge raises hair on your skin. What if the energy of your thoughts also transmits in ways seen and unseen, whether through an invisible charge or through your tone of voice, facial expressions, movements, and behaviors? Lisette has turned off the lights and gone to bed. Manuel lies down in the darkness beside her and whispers, "Hey, come here." Although Lisette hasn't said anything else about the mother and the toddler, she's still ruminating about Manuel being unreliable. He doesn't get me. He's oblivious. He has no idea how upset I am about my mother. His mom is healthy. He really doesn't care about me. These negative thoughts reinforce her fears and insecurities. When Manuel invites her closer, she tells herself he's only being affectionate out of pity. Lisette slides across the mattress. Although she wants to kiss and hold Manuel, her cycling thoughts inhibit her. He probably doesn't find me attractive anymore, she thinks. I've gained weight. He wishes I were thinner. I bet he's glad the lights are off. Manuel hears Lisette sigh. His momentary desire for intimacy and closeness fades. He feels detached from her. He isn't sure what just happened or why. The vibe isn't right. Solo exercise, relationship rumination questionnaire. Use this exercise to increase your awareness of the role rumination plays in your relationship. In a journal, write the numbers 130 in a column with each number on its own line. Then read each item listed below and indicate how you would begin each sentence using the numeric scale. Choose the response that corresponds best with what you actually do rather than with what you think you should do. To download this questionnaire in PDF format, go to http://www.newhousing.com/50034. I never 0, I sometimes 1, I often 2, I always 3. 1. Think I can convince my partner to act a certain way toward me. 2. Think they may leave me if I don't find a way to make them stay. 3. Think I should end this now since I'm going to disappoint my partner. 4. Think of all the ways I could have handled past events better as a partner. 5. Think if I were better at relationships, I wouldn't suffer. 6. Think everyone else is in a better place than I am with my partner. 7. Analyze my partner's actions, words, and behaviors. 8. Analyze myself, my actions, my words, and my behaviors in relationship. 9. Keep most of my thoughts from my partner because they are too negative. 10. Think about painful subjects without sharing my thoughts with my partner. 11. Think my partner is too negative and they should be more positive. 12. Overshare in the hopes it'll bring us closer, then second guess what or how much I've shared. 13. Think other couples are happier than us. 14. Spend a lot of time deciphering my partner's intentions. 15. Spend a lot of time deciphering my own wants. 16. Fantasize about going someplace alone where I'll forget about my relationship. 17. Fantasize about becoming more attractive or successful so my partner will love me more. 18. Spend a lot of time comparing us with a better past relationship. 19. Imagine sad future scenarios with my partner based on sad past scenarios. 20. Think there's something wrong with how I think about us. 21. Think it's unfair that our relationship is so challenging. 22. Think I should be happier than I am with my partner. 23. Think they should be happier with me. 24. Think something's wrong with me as a partner. 25. Think something's wrong with them as a partner. 26. Think I can't function in this partnership. 27. Think we've been through bad times and they're going to happen again. 28. Get mad at myself for bringing us down. 29. Get mad at my partner for bringing us down. 30. Think I can't stand how much stress my / their overthinking causes me. A lot of 2s and 3s suggests more overthinking. Mostly 0s and 1s suggest less. While you may be closer to perceiving the different forms relationship rumination can take after doing this exercise, it can still be challenging to spot it when it's happening, especially in the moment. Why it's hard to spot in therapy, one of the first things I ask couples to do is identify the problem. What a couple identifies as the problem influences the strategies they use to resolve it. When something isn't working, you need to discover what's wrong before seeking solutions. If you hire a general contractor to fix a yellow stain on a ceiling, they'll look into what created it before applying a fresh coat of paint. When there's a stain on a ceiling, the problem appears to be external. The stain looks ugly. But because there could be a leaky pipe in the walls, the contractor doesn't immediately apply a fresh coat of paint and hope for the best. Instead, they consider how the stain got there. Did the pipe burst? Is rainwater trickling into the walls? Does the house need a new roof? Did something go wrong with the duct or vent? They look for a root cause. If the contractor dismisses or ignores a ceiling stain or paints over it when it resurfaces, they are setting the customer up for a much bigger problem in the future. Shapiro 2019. In the same way, the external problem you perceive in your relationship may be a symptom of internal causes. You may identify your problem as communication issues because your partner arrives late even when they agree to arrive on time. When you point this out, they may get defensive, accusing you of making a big deal over nothing. But this so-called communication problem may not be about your surface-level agreements. Your problem as a couple may be less about the words you speak and more about unspoken assumptions, expectations, feelings, needs, and fears you're not openly discussing. Going below the surface can be hard to do. It means surrendering to a process you don't fully control and can't predict. It requires a willingness to open yourself to uncomfortable discoveries. Surrendering and opening to the unknown are vulnerable experiences. For most of us, it's never easy to venture into strange territory where dark, forgotten, or disagreeable specters may lurk. Especially if we're anxious or experiencing stress, we may define our problems in simplistic ways that comfort us with the promise of quick, easy solutions. Fear of the unknown and a desire for comfort and relief mislead us into adopting premature solutions to relationship problems. We focus on the words we speak and on our partner's words or revisit agreements that were made and broken. We misidentify the problem as poor communication or a lack of timeliness, a character flaw in ourselves or our partner, or a past mistake our partner made that we can't forgive. We convince ourselves that everything would be fine if our partner could just say the right things in the right ways. But when you ignore or minimize internal causes and contributors to relationship problems, thoughts, assumptions, expectations, feelings, needs, and fears, your solutions don't stick. This is because you're doing the equivalent of painting over the ceiling stain without addressing the cracked pipes or faulty roof. If you and your partner have found yourselves struggling to fix a tricky couple's problem that keeps cropping up over and over again despite your efforts to resolve it, a hidden cause may be relationship rumination. The next sections explain 4 of the biggest reasons why relationship rumination is hard to recognize and offer some tips on what you can do to spot it more often. Defenses are invisible across therapy models. Whether the focus is on thoughts or emotions, rumination operates as a defense. Defenses are mental or behavioral coping strategies used to avoid some other experience. They are like red herrings in mystery novels. Red herrings are misleading or distracting clues that divert the reader's attention away from the main event or focus. Ruminative thoughts distract you from your own vulnerability. If you don't take the time or make the effort to recognize your defenses, you probably won't see them. Unexamined defenses masquerade as a fixed, permanent part of who you are, like your height or eye color. When you choose to pay attention to the defenses you use, you can begin to see them more clearly. They're clues to the vulnerability that's hidden by your overthinking. Let's say your girlfriend hasn't responded to a text you sent her 6 hours ago. You're upset and you think, what's she doing? Has she forgotten about me? Is she ghosting me on purpose? I thought she enjoyed our weekend as much as I did. Is she already tired of me? You do this without even knowing how you feel about her delayed response to your text. Repetitive negative thinking kicks in as a defense against your own emotions. As you tell a friend about your weekend with your girlfriend, you focus on all the ways she disappointed you. Do you miss her? Your friend asks suddenly. The question unsettles you, but only for a split second. You quickly suppress the uncomfortable emotions you prefer not to feel. Hell no, you laugh. I'm better off alone. I'm not ready to settle down. But what if you answered your friend's question differently? Exhaling and letting yourself feel what's under the fog of negative thoughts. Imagine responding to your friend's question like this. You know, I do miss her. Your friend nods. You're confirming something they sensed. Maybe that's why I'm focusing on all the bad stuff right now. You might continue. I hate to admit it, but I feel lonely without her. It's not a good feeling. When you let yourself feel what you actually feel, however uncomfortable it is to do this, you open to a new possibility. Your overthinking about your girlfriend is a protection against heartache and longing. Because you can see it and feel it, your repetitive negative thoughts don't become the lens through which you view her and deny what's true for you. Rumination is overlooked as a couple's problem. Most people don't know what they're looking at when it comes to the ceiling stains caused by repetitive, negative thinking. Even couples therapists seldom talk about relationship rumination as a couple's shared problem. If overthinking is mentioned at all, it's the problem of one person, the ruminator. This is because negative thinking, distorted thinking, and rumination are viewed as strings of reflexive thoughts in a single person's mind. The ruminator's responsibility, not a relationship issue, right? 1. Take Eddie and Chandra. Neither of them is certain where they'll live after they graduate with nursing degrees from the West Coast university where they met. Every time Chandra tells Eddie she loves him, he starts overthinking. What does she want from me? Does she think I'll agree to move to Chicago? She's probably trying to lure me in. I bet she wouldn't say she loved me if she knew how scared I am. It's only a matter of time before I let her down. Eddie regularly dismisses Chandra's expressions of affection toward him. He jokes about dating a walking Hallmark card. As a result, Chandra stops expressing her affection. I guess I shouldn't be so open with him, she thinks. Maybe he doesn't believe me. Or maybe he's not as serious about us as I am. When Chandra stops saying I love you, it triggers more of Eddie's overthinking. I knew she didn't mean it. It's only a matter of time before people leave you behind. This is why it's better not to trust anyone. If you looked at Eddie's rumination as solely his issue, distinct from his relationship with Chandra, you might say he had trust issues or fear of commitment. If you looked at Chandra's rumination separately from her relationship with Eddie, you might conclude she had low self-esteem and couldn't speak up and share more honestly. But even if Eddie does have trust issues, and even if Chandra does struggle with self-esteem and speaking up, it's the way they're ruminating that fuels their problems as a couple. You would probably agree with me when I say that your thoughts influence your words, actions, and body language. What you may not be as aware of is how your rumination impacts both you and your partner. Once you frame relationship rumination as a couple's shared problem, it's no longer about blaming one person or pointing fingers. You become allies, regardless of who happens to be overthinking from one day to the next. It's thinking, not behavior. Thoughts aren't visible. We can't observe them in the same way as we observe physical objects or events unfolding in the external world. We can't taste them, hear them, smell them, or touch them. They're harder to perceive. Most of the time, when we think something, we get caught up in the flow of thoughts in our minds as if these thoughts were reality rather than thoughts about reality. We regularly merge ourselves with our thinking and mistake our thoughts for absolute truth. In cognitive behavioral therapy, this phenomenon has a name: cognitive fusion. Cognitive fusion makes rumination hard to spot because we're so invested in believing our thoughts that we don't recognize that they are actually interpretations. If we know our thoughts aren't accurate representations of reality just because we happen to think them, we can check them for accuracy before believing them. We can consider alternative thoughts that might be as true as the ones we're having or more true. This can help us protect our relationship from the barrage of falsehoods our minds reflexively create with repetitive, negative thinking. One way to begin spotting rumination is to make a distinction between two different types of thinking: active and passive. Active, directed thinking is rarely ruminative thinking. Passive, automatic thinking, on the other hand, is rumination's bread and butter. Active thinking emerges from a conscious choice to address a problem, follow an intention, create something, or understand an issue more deeply. It involves will and attention. You have a desire to achieve a goal, and you harness your cognitive powers to help you do it. The sequences of thoughts that have led you to seek out this book are examples of active thinking. You want to improve your relationship and reduce rumination, so you think actively about different options and take steps to move toward your goal. Passive thinking, on the other hand, runs on its own. It's there whether you're aware of it or not. It hisses along like a natural gas leak. Sometimes, passive thinking is there in reactive, mixed-up chatter that makes it hard for you to reap the benefits of the positive steps you take. Sometimes it's there in a fog of images, vague emotions, and stories. Right now, as you're reading, there may be passive thoughts in the background of your mind that you're barely conscious of. Is reading a book like this going to make a difference? What if I change and my partner doesn't? I'm not sure I can wait much longer for things to improve. Relationship rumination is passive thinking. Passive thoughts cycle through your mind while your attention remains scattered or externally focused. For example, your partner may ask, "How come we don't spend any time together?" A third of your attention may be on their rigid posture and tense facial expression, a third on their tone of voice and words, and a third on flipping through a takeout menu while figuring out what to order for dinner. You might have little or no awareness of the passive thoughts spinning in your mind, triggered by your partner's words. Nonetheless, these thoughts are there, quietly influencing the situation. What did I do wrong now? How come they are always unhappy with me? Why can't they just let things be without complaining? Your passive thoughts will shape how you speak and act with your partner. We think it's helpful steeping in so many thinking messages over decades can turn thinking into our automatic response to life. Because it's the air we breathe, we don't question it as an effective coping strategy. Many people mistake overthinking as helpful because some thinking styles can be helpful. Thinking strategies such as adaptive self-reflection, problem-solving, and positive reappraisal, more on these in Chapter 9, help us overcome challenges and work through problems. But when healthy thinking gets derailed by overthinking and becomes rumination, it can be hard to tell the difference between helpful and unhelpful thinking styles. Learning from difficult or painful experiences by reviewing them in your mind is an important skill. So is assessing future possibilities. But getting depressed because you can't stop reliving the past hurts you. So does raising your stress level by imagining how much could go wrong in the future. Many people convince themselves that the repetitive, negative messages in their rumination cycles motivate them to accomplish important things. I've heard this from clients who live inside minds where an incessant stream of self-judgment and self-blame push them to get things right and be better. Compassionate forms of personal motivation may be foreign to you if family members or other influential people have convinced you that worry and self-criticism are acceptable ways of improving yourself and overcoming hardships. But the truth is, people succeed in life and love in spite of rumination, not because of it. So then, if rumination isn't helpful, why do we do it? The threat link: when we ruminate, it's usually because we feel threatened by something. Our mind associates some internal or external event, person, or situation with danger. I call this danger association the threat link. The threat link operates unconsciously, and it's what activates our triggers. Triggers are particular kinds of sensory input: images, sounds, words, smells, events, situations, or people that feel threatening because of what you unconsciously associate with them. Usually, triggers cause you to react emotionally, which distorts your understanding of what's actually happening. We'll explore triggers in more depth in Chapter 5. The threat link does this by connecting an internal or external event with forgotten, dismissed, or otherwise unwanted internal experiences. Put another way, the threat link creates our triggers by linking a person, experience, or event with one or more of our vulnerabilities. A simple equation illustrating how this works might look like this: internal/external event plus activated threat link equals trigger. Triggers can be sensations, objects, or events. Pittman and Carl, 2015. Frequently, once a threat is activated, it sets off rumination cycles. Both a sharp pain in your back and driving by a hospital can activate a threat link and set off a cycle of ruminative thoughts. What if my husband gets sick? How will I survive if something happens to him? I can't even put gas in my car without his help. I wish I were more independent. God, I'm pathetic. Eating strawberries can also activate a threat link and set off a similarly grim sequence of thoughts. Oh no, I forgot to wash off these strawberries before eating them. They cover them with pesticides. How could I be so stupid? What if eating them ends up making me sick? Threat links are personal and subjective. They highlight dangers you associate with the sensation, object, person, experience, or event. When a trigger links with something that evokes threat in your mind, two clusters of nuclei in the brain called the amygdala referred to in this book as amygdala, the term most commonly used for them sound an alarm. The amygdala signals danger to other brain structures connected with your autonomic nervous system. This happens pretty much instantly. The amygdala keeps things simple. You're either safe or you're in danger. It receives sensory input from other parts of the brain. It communicates with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems by attaching a code red message to stimuli it has learned to consider dangerous. This message is then sent to the brain's motor systems and the hippocampus. At times of extreme fear, Robert Sapolsky 2017 writes in Behave, the Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst, the amygdala pulls the hippocampus into a type of fear learning 42. The amygdala doesn't understand time, the difference between reality and imagination, or gradations in intensity, degree, or probability. It registers danger when there's a close enough fit between a current trigger and what has been threatening in the past. To the amygdala, a close enough fit doesn't have to be all that close. It errs on the side of caution. How does the threat link function in romantic relationships? Imagine sitting at a table in a coffee shop on a sunny Saturday morning with your partner. A waitress cheerfully takes your order. After she walks away, your partner leans towards you and whispers, "Don't you think she looks like Gal Gadot?" The amygdala connects this comment to past experiences that have led you to feel insecure about your attractiveness, attaching a code red signal to your partner's comment. Before you're aware of the trigger, your amygdala sets off a chain reaction of protective and defensive responses. Pittman and Carl 2015. Your heart rate speeds up, and your blood pressure increases. Neurochemicals spill into your bloodstream. The same information setting off your amygdala arrives at your cortex 2 milliseconds later. By the time your rational mind catches up with what's happening inside you, your body has prepped itself to fight, freeze, or flee. This is the point at which rumination kicks in. Sensing the body's anxiety, your cortex uses its cognitive abilities to control, manage, and make sense of a formless internal experience of danger. How does your mind exert control? Take a wild guess. Then no. Overthinking. Unfortunately, once the amygdala has tagged something as dangerous, it's hard to be objective in the moment. Your threat link is buzzing. You perceive things around you through a rolling fog of fear. Suddenly, the cheerful waitress who took your order looks smug and mean, as if she knows she could steal your partner away from you with a wink and a smile. Your mind spins thoughts like, why is he looking at the freaking waitress? This is supposed to be our special time together. How dare he leer at other women? I should just get up and leave. He doesn't even care that we're in public. It's humiliating. He doesn't respect me. When you're in a low-grade state of anxiety, the sense of being under threat impacts your mood, nervous system, circulation, breathing, and muscle tone. If your partner's face is neutral as he leans across the table, you won't perceive it as neutral anymore once your amygdala has flagged his comment about the waitress with a code red signal. From that point on, you're primed to misperceive his facial expression as hostile, mocking, or indifferent. Groundbreaking discoveries in molecular biology have shown how messages transmitted by our thoughts shape us on a cellular level. Lipton 2015. Modern medicine and new imaging technologies have given scientists and researchers a window into how our thoughts affect our bodies and brains. When you believe you're under threat, the sympathetic nervous system gets mobilized. Your middle ear regulation shifts to lower and higher tones. These are the tones of predation and distress. Dana 2018. In other words, when you feel threatened, you're more likely to perceive the world around you as threatening even when it's not. Now imagine that instead of the Gal Gadot comment, your partner whispers, "You're beautiful." What a sweet thing to say, right? What could be dangerous about a compliment? Except that you grew up with a moralistic parent who insisted bad people focus on physical attractiveness. In that case, your amygdala might register a well-intentioned compliment as a threat. Before you realize it, the amygdala's code red signal lights up, you experience your partner's comment as a trigger, and a subtle fight, flight, or freeze response kicks in. You may cope with your discomfort by ruminating about your partner's words and intentions. Is he being sincere? What if he's manipulating me? Or what if he only loves me now for how I look and not for who I am? What if one day he decides I'm not beautiful anymore? Will he bail? In this case, the threat link runs through uncomfortable memories, longings, impulses, dreams, and regrets connected to your moralistic parent and how they raised you to view your own physical attractiveness. You may ruminate without realizing your amygdala has linked your partner's compliment to your past in a way that feels threatening. Most of us are pretty good at recognizing dramatic forms of fight, flight, and freeze. We're familiar with the fight reactions of yelling and punching or the crouched posture of a soldier avoiding detection. In a common flight reaction, movie heroes throw themselves out of trains, cars, or buses to escape villains. But what about when we come home late from a concert and our partner's shoulders slump? Or the impulse to start cleaning out the kitchen junk drawer when our partner mentions their biological clock ticking? Or the numbness we feel in response to our partner's excitement about winning an award? Or the tension in our partner's jaw when we playfully mention a sexual fantasy we'd like to test out? Although these fight, flight, and freeze reactions aren't as obvious or dramatic as punching, jumping out of cars, and assuming a stone-like posture, they're still signs of an active threat link. It's worth it to get curious about them. If you don't know why your amygdala attaches a code red signal to something your partner says or does, ask yourself, am I feeling a little bit threatened right now? Solo exercise, getting grounded in one breath. One way to shift the amygdala's code red signal to code yellow is through relaxation. Relaxation can start with focusing on one breath, the breath you're taking right now. Starting with one breath keeps this practice simple and easy to remember. As long as you're alive, you're always breathing, so there's always a breath to work with. Whether you get grounded in 1, 3, or 50 consecutive breaths, you're focusing on the breath you're taking in the here and now. Getting grounded doesn't happen in the breath you just took, or in the one that's about to come. It's happening while you read the sentence. The only breath you can ever take happens in the present. Don't worry about doing this practice right. Attending closely to a single breath from beginning to end can be the first small step you take toward getting grounded in your body and in the present moment when something triggers you or you become aware that you're ruminating. You can find an audio recording of this practice at http://www.newhabinger.com/50034. Begin by closing your eyes and breathing through your nose. Without changing anything about the way you breathe, observe the air flowing in and out of your nostrils. Pay attention to one inhale from the microsecond when it starts to when it ends. Take in, as fully as possible, the physical sensations that go with this inhale. Some sensations you may notice are a hint of warmth or coolness along the rims of your nostrils, a slight tingling in your nasal cavities, a subtle expansion of your lungs, your ribs lifting and spreading, a micro moment at the top of the inhale where no air moves. Now, pay attention to the exhale that follows this inhale. If you've gotten distracted or lost your focus, don't worry. Pay attention to the next exhale you're able to focus on. Be with the physical experience of the exhale from its starting point to its end point. Allow the experience to unfold effortlessly. Some sensations you may notice are above your lip, the light touch of air leaving your body through your nostrils, a subtle contraction of muscles in your chest, a settling sensation across your shoulders, a micro moment at the bottom of the exhale when no air moves. Short-term benefits of rumination. If there were no benefits to rumination, we wouldn't do it. First, it temporarily reduces anxiety. Second, it gives us an illusion of control. Third, it's familiar. Because none of us want to experience discomfort, we try to escape it. As we've seen, an easy and socially sanctioned way of escaping discomfort is through overthinking. If our minds can't control an uncomfortable situation, but we also don't want to be with it, we ruminate. Let's take a closer look at each of these short-term benefits. This way, you'll know what false comforts you'll be giving up when you interrupt your overthinking. It reduces anxiety. The word rumination comes from the Latin word ruminatus, which means to chew the cud or turn something over in the Merriam-Webster's New World College Dictionary, 5th ed., 2018 SP, rumination. Cud is what's created when a cow goes through at least one round of chewing and swallows their feet into a section of their stomachs called the rumen. But when cows chew cud, they're relaxed, healthy, and comfortable, and they produce more and better milk. When you engage in rumination, the human, mental version of cud chewing, you're far from relaxed and comfortable. Most of the time, you're anxious. Rumination is a double-edged sword. It temporarily reduces anxiety while also fueling it. It's the night before Darlene and Michael's engagement dinner. Darlene's father is an outspoken Democrat, and Michael's father is a passionate Republican. Their fathers have met once before, and when the conversation turned to politics, it was a disaster. Darlene starts to worry about what will happen. The more anxious she becomes, the more she ruminates, and the more she ruminates, the more anxious she becomes. Her anxiety peaks when she hears Michael talking to his father in the next room in a low voice, asking him not to drink at the dinner. She soothes herself by making a beeline to the freezer and eating 2 pints of ice cream. Most of us have engaged in well-intentioned self-sabotage like this. It's a tragic human foible. As Darlene works her way through the ice cream, she forgets her concerns about the upcoming dinner, outspoken fathers, and politics. Soon afterward, though, her anxious overthinking returns, only now she feels ashamed and sick. Why did I do that? Will I be able to sleep? God, that was dumb. Will I still fit into my engagement outfit? Eating ice cream brought Darlene short-term satisfaction, followed by long-term negative consequences. Her coping strategy made the problem worse. Like eating too much ice cream, overthinking brings temporary relief at a high cost. Doing it sometimes probably won't hurt your relationship much, but doing it a lot can hurt your relationship a lot. In contrast to cut chewing in our bovine friends, rumination won't lead you to a longer, more productive life or happier relationship. Quite the opposite. Rather than helping you digest your mental feed, it makes the problem you can't stomach even more indigestible. It gives the illusion of control. In a study titled The Neurobiological Substrates of Dread, researchers at Emory University School of Medicine studied the brain activity of volunteer subjects who waited to receive a shock for an unknown time period. Burns et al. 2006. The study showed that given the choice between a stronger and a weaker shock, many people will choose a stronger shock administered earlier over waiting for a weaker shock that will arrive at some unspecified moment in the future. Ruminating functions in a similar way. We engage in it even though it hurts us. When we ruminate, we're attempting to stay in control, even if letting go of control would be less painful. Like the subjects in the dread study who couldn't stand knowing an unpleasant event might happen at some unknown point in the future, we choose the more painful scene of repetitive, negative thinking to the unsettling experience of uncertainty. It's familiar from a very young age. We've received hundreds, even thousands of messages about how thinking is superior to being. We've come to believe thinking is for adults, being is for children. Thinking is strong, being is weak. Thinking is useful, being is unproductive. These messages reinforce our view of thinking as the best and most familiar go-to solution. Because certain kinds of thinking are helpful, we may believe all thinking helps us cope. Familiarity is easily mistaken for safety. But familiarity and safety aren't the same thing. Sometimes doing what's familiar has disastrous consequences. In business, if you invest in companies you're familiar with because you shop at their stores, own their devices, or use their products, you risk over-investing in companies you're familiar with rather than creating a diversified portfolio that can weather the ups and downs of a changing market. People with little experience flying insist they're safer in a car than in a plane, but a 2017 article in Fortune magazine analyzed data from the National Highway Safety Travel Administration and the National Safety Transportation Board and concluded that Americans have a 1 in 114 chance of dying in a car accident as compared to 1 in 9,821 in a plane crash. Jenkins 2017. As you expand your definition of safety beyond what's familiar, prepare to get a little uncomfortable. Joint exercise. What rumination does for me: find a quiet place to sit without distractions. Used to getting grounded in one breath exercise to center yourself or listen to the audio recording at http://www.newhabinger.com/50034. Bring to mind a recent situation when you were caught in a cycle of overthinking. Rather than thinking about it or rehashing different details of what happened, mentally step back from the situation as you recall it. Observe it as if it were a miniature diorama in a snow globe. Write your responses to the questions below in a journal. If you want to, share your answers with your partner. Refer to the speaker and listener responsibilities for refresher on creating safety and supporting connection as you speak and listen. What might your overthinking have done for you in this situation? Was it a familiar habit you fell into? Did it reduce your anxiety, at least temporarily distracting you from something uncomfortable? Did it give you an illusion of control? Did it feed some aspect of your identity you're attached to, such as being right, looking good, or being the one who's always at fault? If so, could you relax your grip on this aspect of your identity by reminding yourself, I don't have to be right, I don't have to look good, or I'm not always at fault. Joint exercise. My blocks to spotting overthinking. Select one high-scoring item from the relationship rumination questionnaire you completed earlier in this chapter. If you haven't completed it, glance through it and choose an item you know you do a lot. What gets in the way of noticing the negative thoughts represented by this item? Do they hum along in the background, outside of your conscious awareness? Do you believe the thinking represented by this item is helpful in some way? Does thinking like this temporarily reduce your anxiety? In the speaker and listener roles, share with one another a technique or practice that might help you bring awareness to this item in the future. For example, if you circled item number 27, I often think we've been through tough times and they're bound to happen again, you might tell your partner, I don't realize it's harmful when I think this way, I actually think I'm doing a good thing by bracing myself for the worst. In terms of one thing you've learned so far that might help you bring awareness to these thoughts, you might say, I'll practice getting grounded in one breath, or I'll remind myself of some of the being messages from the being and thinking messages checklist exercise. To download a PDF worksheet of this exercise, go to http://www.newhabinger.com/50034. Rumination cycles like the spinning beach ball of death or a snowball rolling downhill and gathering momentum. Ruminative thoughts turn in a seemingly endless loop around the same painful themes. I've identified 5 distinct rumination cycles centered on the themes of blame, control, doubt, worry, and self-pity. The similarities and differences are listed here. Blame, doubt, and self-pity cycles are past-oriented. Worry and control cycles are future-oriented. Blame, doubt, and worry cycles target either a partner, oneself, or both. Self-pity cycles are focused on oneself as a victim. Each rumination cycle points toward a shortage of some important psychological nutrient. When you recognize a rumination cycle, you can bring this nutrient in as an antidote to a particular focus or approach that will help counteract this cycle. I'll discuss each cycle in detail along with their antidotes in the sections that follow. Here's an overview of psychological nutrients you can draw on to slow or stop each rumination cycle before it snowballs. If blame cycles are your go-to form of overthinking, practice acceptance. If you find yourself worrying a lot, connect with your body in the here and now. If doubt is your main form of relationship rumination, expand your ability to trust. If you spin control cycles, let go of perfectionism and what's outside of your control. If you spin self-pity cycles, take responsibility for your contribution to problems. All of us are capable of spinning all the rumination cycles, and it's not unusual to spin a hybrid of 2 or even 3 of them at once. But most of us have a dominant cycle, the one we spin most often. We may spin it so much that it colors our identity and personality. As you investigate your own dominant rumination cycle, you'll probably discover you have a secondary one too. This is the cycle you spin when your dominant cycle fails to bring resolution, relief, or closure. As you identify your dominant and secondary cycles, get curious about what triggers them. Draw on practices that can help you counteract your cycle's reality distorting power by cultivating the missing nutrient of acceptance, being present in your body, trust, letting go of perfectionism and control, and taking responsibility for your contribution to problems. Blame cycle. Antidote. Practice acceptance. This is my fault. I'm such an idiot. How could I let this happen? It's unacceptable, intolerable, horrible, awful. My partner is selfish. They're wrong. They should pay for this. They should apologize. Don't they realize how much pain they're causing me? Thoughts, memories, and images in the blame cycle revolve around painful past events. A conversation escalated into a fight. You're sure you've been unfairly treated, taken advantage of, and misunderstood. You had good intentions, and your partner misinterpreted what you said or did. You planned a special trip, and your partner ruined it with their irritability. The dinner ended awkwardly for you and your dinner guests. You recall the past selectively. Events confirming your own or your partner's flaws are magnified. Has your partner ever sincerely praised you for something you reflexively denied or minimized? Maybe they said, "You look great," and you responded, "No, I don't, or I'm tired." Maybe they said, "It was so thoughtful of you to pick me up from the airport," and you said, "Well, of course, why wouldn't I?" When you spin blame cycles, you're too busy blaming your partner or yourself to take love in. When blame is directed at your partner, it's fueled by aggression and resentment. As long as you focus on what's wrong with your partner, you don't have to look at your contribution to problems. You can cry, "I'm innocent." A false sense of superiority protects you from the truth of your own human imperfections and flaws. When you direct it at yourself, it's sustained by guilt, shame, and regret. You're self-critical. You should have known better. If blame cycles are your go-to form of overthinking, you suffer from an acceptance shortage. Practice accepting what you normally blame yourself or your partner for. If you blame your partner for regularly taking the last sheet of toilet paper on the roll without putting in a replacement roll, accept the fact that they do this. You may as well, since they're doing it whether you accept it or not. If you blame your partner for the current stress level, try accepting it instead. They are under stress right now. It is happening. If you blame yourself for being angry, accept your anger. How does it help you or anyone else for you to reject what you already are? You don't have to like something to accept it. You don't have to give up on expressing your needs and wishes either or on improving your life and your relationship. You can accept your partner taking the last sheet of toilet paper without putting in a new roll, and at the same time, you can let your partner know how you feel and what you want when you're calm, and they're more likely to hear your feedback. You can say, when you take the last sheet of toilet paper without putting in a new roll, "I get mad. It puts me in a tough position. Can you replace the roll next time?" Doing this with acceptance increases the chances of your partner listening and altering their behavior, since the negative charge of blame isn't leaking into the relationship field, raising their defenses, and making it harder for them to relate to you. Control cycle. Antidote. Release perfectionism and what you can't control and know best. I'm rational. I'm in touch with my emotions. My views should hold sway. I'm more genuine. I'm kinder, wiser, healthier, superior, younger, older. Because I'm the extrovert, I'm more suited to organize our social life. I'm the one who keeps us healthy, safe, and happy. I'm justified in pursuing and enforcing my agenda. I'm the one who knows how to handle this. These thoughts orbit a desired future outcome and the best way to achieve it. Your partner must sit down at the table immediately. They must talk to someone, a therapist, parent, boss, or realtor ASAP. It's time for an emergency meeting with your attorney because you know what the next step is. You're curious about consensual non-monogamy, and so they should be too. It's time to go to Hawaii. You're done with long-distance relationships. You're showing up on your partner's doorstep with a suitcase, a toothbrush, and an espresso machine. Tension, mistrust, and inflexibility accompany the control cycle. Thoughts have a moralistic edge. You believe in externally defined truths, and you're the one who knows what they are. Your partner should and must fulfill your vision of the relationship. Possibilities and options are black and white. There's good or bad, right or wrong, healthy or unhealthy. Although you may generally be loyal and thoughtful, in this cycle, your interactions are strategic. Different opinions are unacceptable. You're invested in one outcome, yours. If you're in a control cycle a lot, get grounded in one breath often. Remind yourself that absolute certainty and invulnerability are pipe dreams. You can relax control over others and life wisely and gradually. You can entertain a more complex, nuanced worldview. Practice enjoying the process of whatever it is that you're doing instead of striving for a predetermined or perfect outcome. What if events can unfold in everyone's best interests even when you don't micromanage them? Ask yourself, is this person, event or situation mine to control? Will control get me what I truly want here? Doubt cycle. Antidote, cultivate trust. Can I be sure of my own perceptions? Maybe I'm imagining things. Did what I think took place really happen? Why is every other couple doing better than we are? Why did I choose my partner? Is there someone smarter, kinder, more attractive, or richer out there for me? Why did my partner choose me? Am I a fraud? Can I trust my own choices? My intuition has misled me in the past. What if I keep making poor choices? Gaslighting refers to a form of psychological manipulation done by one person to another where the gaslighter disorients the gaslightee by denying, minimizing, questioning, and undermining their perceptions of reality. In a cycle, your own overthinking gaslights you. You selectively recall, minimize, and deny what you know. Or else you overdramatize embarrassing, shameful, or negative aspects of things you've done and choices you've made. Like a fisherman casting a line into a stagnant pond, these kinds of thoughts fly and land with a plop. They don't hook what they're trying to catch. There's never enough certainty. There are never absolute guarantees. No evidence is ever ironclad enough to support your choices, decisions, or actions. Good times seem insubstantial and fleeting. Searching for evidence only reinforces doubts. Painful insecurity and self-judgment are the hallmarks of chronic doubt cycles. The more you overthink, the less you trust your own recollections and intuition. You risk giving others negative perceptions of you real or imagined more importance than they deserve. When your overthinking regularly gaslights you, caring feedback from a supportive partner can open your eyes to a broader perspective. It can reduce the imbalance created by your constant second-guessing of yourself and your choices. If the thoughts in your doubt cycles undermine your own or your partner's assessment of your strengths, accomplishments, and positive qualities, recognize it. Remind yourself, here's doubt gaslighting me again. Invest yourself fully in the process of living your life even when your choices don't deliver the results you expect on your timeline. Make decisions and choices to the best of your ability even when the outcome can't be known in advance. Be gentle with yourself and cultivate realistic expectations. When things don't work out the way you want them to, be with the vulnerability you feel instead of thinking about how you shouldn't have trusted yourself. Remind yourself, I'm doing the best I can with the knowledge and abilities I have. Missing the mark and learning is part of being human and relating authentically to other people. Worry cycle. Antidote, connect with your body in the here and now. What will happen if he gets hurt on the job? What if we divorce and I don't see our children as much as I do now? What if they stop loving me? She might cancel our next date if she finds out I'm a type -1 diabetic. One of us might catch COVID and give it to my father. This could be the last time we're happy together as a couple. Ruminative worry is an attempt to generate knowledge through forecasting and prediction. But nobody can truly know what will happen in advance. In this cycle, positive outcomes are dismissed or ignored. Worst-case scenarios rule. Fear keeps the cycle going. You convince yourself you'll be safe as long as you prepare for the worst. Your mind does this by thinking of everything that could go wrong. Instead of helping you feel safer, this strategy heightens your sensitivity to danger. Like a game of psychological whack-a-mole, for every worst-case scenario you think of and imagine fixing, another worst-case scenario pops up. There's no way you can prepare for every potential catastrophe or possible negative outcome. If you spin worry cycles regularly, the antidote is connecting with your body in the here and now. Worry commandeers awareness, siphoning it away from the present moment and wasting it on a non-existent future. Tuning into your body can bring your awareness back to what does exist, you. Now. Used to getting grounded in one breath exercise, or listen to the audio at http://www.newhobby.com/50034 to practice being in your body with this one breath you're taking. Like oil and water, worry in the present moment don't mix. When you find yourself worrying about an event or situation, Inside meditation teacher and founder of Mindful Shenandoah Valley Shell Fisher has a mantra she offers retreatants. She suggests settling in, getting grounded in your body, and then saying these words to yourself as often as you need to. If this thing I fear transpires the way I would like it to, that would be great. If it doesn't, that will be okay too, because either way, I am and will be okay. Self-pity cycle. Antidote, take responsibility for your part. Why me? There's nothing I can do. Life is unfair. I don't deserve this. How come bad things always happen to me? I've tried everything. My situation is hopeless. We don't stand a chance as a couple. Nothing makes a difference. The universe is against me. Suffering is my destiny. There's no solution. Giving up is my only option. Nothing will ever change. The self-pity cycle kicks in when the other cycles don't bring resolution or relief. If you convince yourself you're never the problem or are always wrongly treated, you can ignore your own irresponsibility, selfishness, immaturity, or passivity. Self-pity distracts you from your part in creating or sustaining helpful situations. Life looks simple through a fairy tale lens of good and bad, right and wrong, particularly if you're always on the right side of the lens. Often, the unacknowledged expectation is that by embracing the role of a victim, you'll inspire your partner to rescue you. But when you make your partner responsible for your well-being or behave as though you're completely helpless when you're not, they end up feeling controlled. Even if your partner bends over backward to help you feel better, sooner or later, they will get annoyed with you. They may complain of feeling manipulated. When you use self-pity to extract care or concern, you take advantage of other people's goodness. Often, the self-pity cycle is a reaction to an acknowledged shame, self-judgment, and self-hatred. It's a weak substitute for the self-acceptance and self-love a person caught in self-pity truly longs for. People who find themselves spinning self-pity cycles can work on grieving losses, changing or accepting a difficult situation, and taking responsibility for their part in creating relationship problems. Forgive yourself for things you've said or done reactively or defensively. Allow yourself to feel remorse and make amends for what you've done. If you face your flaws, it brings you closer to self-acceptance than denying them or blaming them on your partner or other people. Ask yourself, what can I take more responsibility for here? I'm not saying you should blame yourself for things you haven't done, ignore your own hurt when people mistreat you, or deny injustice. Becoming a masochist isn't the answer, it's another facet of self-pity. If you find yourself on the receiving end of insults or aggression, this must be addressed when it's safe for you to do so. Enabling partners to behave in devaluing ways isn't good for you or them. You can recognize your needs and assert yourself while also facing your contribution to problems. Be humble without needless self-sacrifice. Tell the whole truth. When you recognize your rumination cycles, you empower yourself. You're no longer at the mercy of anxious overthinking that's hidden and hard to spot. Identifying cycles deflates them, like bubbles you pop with a perk of needle-sharp awareness. The next exercise will help you pick up on core themes in your ruminative thoughts as you identify your dominant and secondary rumination cycles. Solo exercise, rumination cycles log at the top of a separate sheet of paper, or in a journal, make 3 columns with the headings, triggers, associated thoughts, and the cycles. Then, think of a time when your threat link was activated. Choose a situation where the activation was mild, or 1 or 2 on an intensity scale of 1 to 5. Write a brief 5 to 8 word description of what happened under trigger. For example, if you recognize you get upset whenever your partner rearranges dishes you've loaded in the dishwasher, you might write, Joe rearranged the dishes I loaded under trigger. As you imagine yourself in this triggering situation, what kinds of repetitive negative thoughts did or might typically spin around in your mental pinwheel? Write down 3 or 4 examples. In the case of the rearranged dishes, you might write, he corrects everything I do, he's controlling, he doesn't appreciate me, under associated thoughts. Sense into the theme of these thoughts. Do they carry an emotional charge of blame, control, doubt, worry, or self-pity? Write the cycle or cycles you've identified in the 3rd column, under cycles. There may be more than 1 cycle for each example. Over the course of the next few days, fill out this log whenever you experience an upsetting event or situation with your partner. Once you've identified between 6 to 10 triggers and cycles, put a star next to the cycle that shows up most on your list. This is likely your dominant rumination cycle. Underline the 2nd most frequently recurring cycle. This is likely your secondary rumination cycle. Relationship rumination, as you learned in this chapter, is a habit of chronic, repetitive, negative thinking engaged in by one or both partners within a committed, romantic bond. After reading this chapter, hopefully you have a better sense of how rumination in your relationship impacts both of your satisfaction levels, how to spot it, your primary and secondary rumination cycles, and their antidotes. The next step is to examine your relationship field. Page 56. Chapter 2. Your relationship field. You and your partner are connected in a psychic, emotional, spiritual, and energetic space. Physical limits don't define it. In the work of philosopher Martin Buber 2010, this space is called the between. It's the foundation of all relations and relationships. Buddhist scholar Thich Nhat Hanh 2002 has called it into her being, emphasizing that nothing has a separate self, and nothing exists by itself. 11. Because partners don't always feel connected, they can overlook the significance and existence of a relationship field. Acknowledging that a relationship field exists requires a mental shift in how you view yourselves as a couple. It means recognizing that there's always more to both of you than meets the eye. Your unseen choices, decisions, actions, and impulses don't begin and end inside your skin. Even small, seemingly private choices have an impact. When you throw garbage from the window of your car, it lands someplace whether or not you see where. When you eat food, you're also eating the practices that went into creating, growing, harvesting, and transporting this food. When you drive your car without a muffler, toxic fumes linger in the air for others to breathe. You can pollute your relationship field with repetitive, negative thoughts, even when you're not aware of it. The relationship field is a continuous, shifting, energetic ebb and flow of connection. It's here, between you and your partner, alive, vibrating, and responsive. It sends and receives information. You might even say that it is information. It adapts to new and different currents of energy, changing as you change, vibrating at frequencies you and your partner create together. When you acknowledge the existence of this relationship field, you take an ecological view of thinking. Thoughts impact your partner's well-being and yours too. They can pollute or nourish your relational ecosystem. Shifting out of an individualistic paradigm into a relational one can transform the way you think about what you think. You will see yourself as a contributor to the state of your relationship rather than as an innocent victim or a passive bystander. What you say or don't say, do or don't do matters. Responsibility has an upside. It fosters personal power and agency, giving you the confidence to support interdependence, healthy boundaries, and safety through your thinking, speech, and behaviors. If you regularly experience a sense of devitalization, boundary failures, and anxiety with your partner, rumination may be polluting your field. Devitalization in a relationship where one or both partners shut down, the energy of shifting and changing sensations, emotions, and impulses can't flow easily or naturally. Partners ignore the messages and emotional signals their bodies send them. When energy doesn't flow, it can be channeled creatively or productively. Imagine water trying to move through a garden hose full of kinks. Eventually, the force of the water will pop the hose, spout out in unexpected ways, and make a mess. Energy that can't flow builds up or stagnates. Sometimes, it seems to disappear until it explodes with destructive consequences. Signs of devitalization in a relationship field are feeling bored with each other, joylessness, an ongoing lack of creativity, feeling uninspired, existential angst, low-grade depression, an ongoing experience of deadness or numbness, feeling trapped, feeling cynical, jaded, or unmotivated, purposelessness, lack of passion, feeling like roommates, disconnection from yourself, exhaustion. Boundary failures. When setting boundaries, it helps to have a strong sense of yourself as an individual, separate from your partner. It also helps when you can connect with your own genuine wants, needs, and desires. In order to set boundaries, you may have to make choices that go against what you've been told by your family, community, or society you should want, need, or desire. It takes courage to assert your boundaries when your own unconscious attachment system, more on this later in this chapter, drives you to stay connected and avoid making waves in a relationship. Boundary setting skills allow you to honor your own physical and mental health, even when it means disappointing others, including your partner, in the short term. Signs of boundary failures in a relationship field include making yourself responsible for your partner's choices, feelings, and actions, chronic neediness and insecurity, the expectation of mind reading as a form of communication, power imbalances, mindlessly caretaking others, passive aggression, over-reliance on rigid boundaries, structure and routines, feeling unmoved by too few boundaries, structure or routines, lack of commitment, confusion about needs and wants, inability to make decisions, resentment, feeling emotionally suffocated, feeling controlled, feeling like you can't live up to expectations, believing your partner has to meet your expectations, feeling emotionally disengaged from your partner. If you regularly take too much responsibility for others as a way of coping with your own anxiety or discomfort, pay close attention to your motives. Why do you do this? Is it disorienting or frightening when you can't control the outcome of a situation? Do you feel obligated to keep the peace? What would happen if you only took responsibility for your own thoughts, feelings, choices, and behaviors in situations where you tend to overextend yourself? If you take too much responsibility for what unfolds in your relationship field, you rob your partner of the opportunity to grow beyond their comfort zone, develop their relational skills, and see their contribution to relationship problems. When you practice setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, you recognize your true contribution to those things in your relationship that are hurting you. You don't turn your back on your own needs or overburden yourself with others' needs. You empower yourself and conserve energy you typically squander by releasing control of what isn't yours to control. Anxiety. Imagine you can't rely on your partner to support you at key moments. Maybe you've learned it's not safe to lean on people and receive others' love and care. Or maybe your partner truly isn't capable of supporting you. Whatever the reasons, if you can't reduce your own stress, whether real or imagined, it becomes hard to relax. You could be blindsided or overwhelmed at any moment. As a result, you start doubting your own and your partner's ability to manage challenges. Doubt and distress breed anxiety. If you can't relax, you can't release tension and reset your nervous system. Similar to driving a car with one foot on the brake pedal and one foot on the gas pedal, you will wear yourself out sooner than if you used one pedal at a time, either to brake because it's important to slow down or to accelerate because it's critical to move forward. Anxiety sets you at odds with yourself. Signs of a relationship field saturated with anxiety are irritability, feeling obligated to stay together, waiting for the other shoe to drop, feeling unsafe, even when things are good, excessive use of electronic devices, excessive use of alcohol or other mind-altering substances, inability to trust your partner, expecting the worst, having a hard time sleeping, regular injuries, aches and pains, constant worrying, difficulty opening up, challenges being vulnerable, lack of connection, lack of intimacy. Maintaining your field. If you and your partner see yourselves as co-contributors to the state of your relationship field, you increase your motivation to stop polluting it with ruminative thinking. You're clear that blaming stokes conflicts, controlling limits you, worrying can't fix the present, doubting destabilizes you, and self-pity promotes powerlessness. You're willing to acknowledge that what you say or don't say within a relationship field matters. So does what you do and don't do. The kind of thinking you indulge in influences your words and actions. No matter who you are, you can make authentic, respectful connection a priority. Shifting from overthinking your experiences and defending against your vulnerabilities to being with them supports interdependence, healthy boundaries, and safety in your relationship field. Interdependence. Being interdependent is the sweet spot between counterdependence, avoiding intimacy, and codependence, over relying on another person for your sense of purpose, identity, and well-being. In a relationship field where two people cultivate interdependence, they both know and experience themselves as separate people while also feeling close and connected. When you know and honor who you are separate from your partner, you're willing and able to make hard choices, take responsibility for yourself, and move in the direction of your deepest desires, whether for date night or adopting a terrier together at the local shelter. In a relationship field where you and your partner respect each other's interdependence, you acknowledge that you are both agents of your own lives. Being together is a choice. You accept your differences by supporting each other's right to be separate, distinct selves. At the same time, you are comfortable leaning on each other, relying on each other, and needing each other. Because you know where you end and your partner begins, you can also connect deeply and genuinely. Your partner's moods, feelings, needs, and desires may impact you, but they don't define you. Interdependence allows you to enjoy experiences of being who you are, appreciating your partner's quirks and imperfections, feeling accepted even when you're not perfect, feeling like anything is possible, feeling happier with your partner in your life than without them, feeling interested in each other, feeling excitement when you're together, feeling curious and fascinated by life, feeling free even though you're in a relationship, being comfortable leaning on and needing each other, honestly advocating for yourself and your values, challenging the status quo, personal power, creativity, laughter, and playfulness. Healthy boundaries. In her book Set Boundaries, Find Peace, The Guide to Reclaiming Yourself, Nedra Glover-Torp 2021 describes 3 levels of boundaries: porous, rigid, and healthy. Porous boundaries are confusing, weak, or non-existent. Rigid boundaries are immovable and unaccommodating. Healthy boundaries are clear, firm, and flexible. Partners with weak boundaries give others' needs priority over their own and are poor gatekeepers of their personal resources. Partners with rigid boundaries tend to be stubborn and guarded, which makes intimacy difficult. Partners with healthy boundaries can be firm while also being flexible. Healthy boundaries are clear, reliable limits. They help you recognize and understand what works and what doesn't between you. They can help reduce anxiety because you know what's expected of you and how to meet those expectations. When old boundaries stop making sense and new ones are needed, limits can be reworked and renegotiated. Like highways, all boundaries require maintenance. Patching them, filling potholes, and sometimes overhauling them completely takes time and work. With so much traffic moving along them every day, boundaries are a critical part of the infrastructure of your relationship field. When you cultivate healthy boundaries, you recognize that your partner is a unique being. They are not you. They are a different person. This seems obvious, but it's easy to forget. You make it a point to check in with them about what's okay with them and what's not okay. Assumptions undermine healthy boundaries. If you're comfortable talking about your sexual identity, gender identity, fertility issues, or family history with friends and relatives, you know this doesn't automatically mean your partner is comfortable talking about these things as openly as you are. You ask them before sharing their personal information. You recognize and assert your boundaries while also researching and respecting theirs. In a relationship filled with healthy boundaries, enjoy being heard and respected, saying no when you mean no, saying yes when you mean yes, clarity about what your partner needs, wants, and expects and why, not having to guess when it comes to pleasing your partner, being able to make mistakes and learn, being able to pivot and change direction, experiencing appropriate guilt or shame when you cross or disregard boundaries, helping each other get through feelings of guilt and shame, being held accountable firmly when boundaries are crossed or disregarded, being able to count on clear and consistent limits, open discussions about boundaries, boundary renegotiation when needs and desires change. When you want to establish healthy boundaries with your partner, keep these guideposts in mind. 1. Bring to mind a boundary you want to establish. For example, I'd like you to wait till I'm done speaking before offering me your thoughts or opinions about what I'm saying. 2. Connect with the why behind this boundary. How will this boundary support you in your relationship? 3. Use positive rather than negative language to acknowledge the intention behind your boundary. For example, I want to feel safe and comfortable sharing my thoughts with you, rather than I want to be with someone who isn't selfish and doesn't interrupt me. 4. Honor your boundary through action, such as restating your boundary or giving your partner what Towell 2021 calls a healthy ultimatum. An example of a healthy ultimatum might be, the next time you interrupt me, I'll refrain from sharing whatever it was I wanted to share at that moment. Accept that your partner's choices and decisions regarding your boundaries are beyond your control. If you can't accommodate and also honor one another's boundaries and still be true to yourselves, you may need to reevaluate your goals and priorities as a couple. Safety allows you to trust yourself, your partner, and your relationship. When you make mistakes, your partner disappoints you, or unexpected events blindside you, trust can be restored. If there is a baseline of safety in your relationship, it strengthens your sense of who you are, who your partner is, and who you are together. At the same time, a strong sense of yourselves as individuals and as a couple fosters a sense of safety. Paradoxically, partners who feel safe can take calculated risks, investing themselves in adventures and opportunities. In a relationship field where emotional and physical safety are the norm, we appreciate taking informed and calculated risks, regularly stepping out of your comfort zones, knowing you have each other's back. Time spent with your partner, periods of time away from your partner, a steady stream of new learnings and insights, experiencing and resolving conflicts rather than avoiding them, knowing that tough moments are temporary, genuine repair is a common occurrence, your partner making your well-being a top priority. By recognizing your contribution to the state of something bigger than both of you, the relationship field you co-create, you can foster emotional resilience and forge an alliance in service of a shared goal, maintaining a relationship field where interdependence, healthy boundaries, and safety can evolve and flourish. As you acknowledge and care for your relationship and reduce rumination, there's one key factor you don't want to overlook: your attachment style. Attachment styles in field. The 4-category model of adult attachment incorporates LM models and proposes 4 primary attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant dismissive, and avoidant fearful. Bartholomew and Horowitz, 1991. Here, I focus mostly on 3 styles: secure, anxious, and avoidant. This last style combines elements of both the avoidant dismissive and avoidant fearful styles described by Bartholomew and Horowitz. Once we've considered individual attachment styles and how these shape ruminative thinking in relationships, we'll look at how your attachment style combines with your partner's into what I call an attachment style pairing, or ASP. ASP represent the interplay of attachment styles partners create together, and they can influence relationship rumination. For this reason, it helps to understand your ASP. British psychologist John Bowlby, 1986, first began formulating attachment theory 80 years ago. Since then, research has shown how early bonds with primary caregivers shape how children act later as adults in relationships. Fears and longings originating in your earliest formative attachments fire up memories, physiological responses, and emotions. They also activate unconscious interpersonal templates about love. Implicit in these templates are expectations of danger and reward. These unconscious expectations seated in the past come alive for false and present-day romantic commitments, setting into motion outdated coping strategies you used as a child to ensure your physical and psychic survival. In Attached, authors Levine and Heller, 2010, note, the need to be near someone special is so important that the brain has a biological mechanism specifically responsible for creating and regulating our connection with our attachment. Figures 12. This mechanism is our attachment system. When you're triggered by something your partner says or does, this system fires up, and things can get emotionally charged and intense. The reason this happens is partly because your brain isn't too different now than it was between 35,000 and 100,000 years ago. You respond to triggers in your relationship as intensely as if you were facing a tiger or deadly assassin. Newbar et al. 2018. A threat to your romantic alliance, even a small one, can feel like a threat to your survival. So what does it mean to have a secure, anxious, or avoidant attachment style? Secure attachment is often distorted into the stereotype we associate with romantic love. A couple clinks champagne glasses on a balcony and snaps selfies in front of the Taj Mahal. The young lovers lie in bed half naked as they gaze into each other's eyes. Idealized and taken out of context, the myth of natural, effortless, secure attachment contributes to relationship rumination. It showcases a simplistic version of partnership where it's easy to believe that all you have to do to be happy as a couple is win a magical, lucky love lottery. But this stereotype isn't realistic or attainable. When partners aspire to it, they mistake normal relationship difficulties and challenges as signs of personal failure. As the happy hour love cocktail of oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin drains away, lovers free fall through cloud 9 and land with a jolt on the asphalt of their ordinary, everyday lives. Rent or mortgage payments are due. Laundry accumulates. Diapers don't change themselves. In-laws criticize furniture choices. Careless partners leave facial hair in the sink. Differences emerge. This is normal. Securely attached people don't have perfect relationships. They struggle. They fantasize about leaving. They shut down and cling. But because they're generally more relaxed about closeness and have more experience setting healthy boundaries, they tend to deal directly with challenges as they arise and have a more varied and flexible repertoire of coping styles and strategies than their avoidant or anxious counterparts. They cling less and avoid less. They're better at handling the uncertainties of emotional attachment without over or underreacting. Secure may be your attachment style if you generally trust the experience of partnership. You enjoy connecting with your partner, though you can also be by yourself. You're pretty good at tolerating the uncertainty and vulnerability that go with relying on another grown adult for attention and care. You can relax into the ups and downs of loving. You can accept the experience of having a range of positive and negative feelings toward your partner. Sometimes at the same time when your partner isn't available, you can soothe yourself. When you fight, you can make up, even if you don't always do it perfectly. Flowing in and out of connection is a constant in all couples' lives. Over time, couples who put in the work can get better at this flow, and conflict become milder and less frequent. Repairs can happen more quickly and efficiently. A peaceful alliance can become your baseline. If you have an anxious attachment style, you'll most likely need to invest time and effort into developing some of the skills that come more naturally to those with a secure style. Anxiously attached people seek proximity. Their fears increase when they're with a partner who wants more physical or emotional distance than they do. They try to achieve or maintain close contact with their partner by worrying, strategizing, and controlling situations in ways that keep their partner within their orbit. If this is your style, your triggers will center around your partner's availability and distance-seeking behaviors. Anxious may be your attachment style if you choose partners you believe you can control. It hurts that your partner doesn't include you more in things they do. You resent their pursuits and hobbies. You have a hard time accepting your partner's friendships. Your partner's job raises your anxiety level. Whatever separates you from your partner feels like a potential threat. Your partner frequently makes plans without informing you till the last minute. You don't ever get enough attention, affection, or understanding from your partner. Your partner's emotional unavailability is a major relationship trigger that sets off rumination cycles focused on your need for closeness. If you blame yourself for your partner's standoffishness, your overthinking may take the form of a blame cycle that revolves around your own neediness, your partner's distancing behaviors, or your sadness. If you blame your partner, your cycles will focus on your partner's flaws, their inadequacies, and the ways they cause you pain and disappoint you. You may also judge them for failing to love you the right way. Worry cycles spin around future worst-case scenarios, potential losses, unfulfilled dreams, imagined regrets. Control cycles feature recurring thoughts about managing your partner's attention or getting them to appreciate you or fully commit to you or the relationship. Doubt cycles undermine your certainty about what you know or intuit. Self-pity cycles reinforce the belief that your partner is selfish or immature while you're an innocent victim of a relationship awaiting rescue. As said in Chapter 1 leans toward an anxious attachment style. After they eat dinner, she typically says, "I'm tired," and leaves Manuel alone in the living room, and what she truly wants is more affection from him. He turns on the television to watch football. Lisette sits on her bed spinning a self-pity cycle, hoping Manuel will worry about her, come to the door, and ask if she's okay. When he doesn't, she feels unsettled and panicky. In the end, she usually ends up opening the door to their bedroom and saying, "Can you please turn down the TV?" Avoidant attachment, unlike anxious partners, who were left to their own devices when they needed support, avoidantly attached partners usually have a history of being intruded upon or controlled when they needed space. If you're on the avoidant side of the attachment spectrum, you have a hard time trusting that being close to another person would result in your boundaries being trampled. Avoidant may be your attachment style if, in your early life, something interfered with your healthy drive to establish yourself as separate and distinct from a caregiver. You were discouraged from expressing and pursuing your own needs. You use emotional distancing techniques to reduce your anxiety in relationships. You idealize solitude, and alone time. Intimacy can feel threatening and anxiety-provoking. You'd rather hedge commitment than risk letting your partner down. Alone time is often code for time away from my partner with other people who don't make emotional demands on me. Your triggers center around times when your partner wants to know more than you're willing to disclose about work, feelings, thoughts, friends, family, plans for the future, past experiences, hobbies, dreams, interests, food, travel, or musical and artistic preferences. You wish your partner would accept the information you volunteer without asking follow-up questions. You don't like it when your partner tries to connect with you when what you need is space and silence. They want more verbal and physical expressions of affection from you than you're able to comfortably give them. You experience your partner as needy. Remember Eddie, who feels uncomfortable when Chandra tells him she loves him. Because his attachment style is avoidant, Chandra's affection becomes an overarching relationship trigger for him. So does her need for his attention. Eddie can easily slip into blame cycles when Chandra asks him to hold her hand when they are out in public. "She's so controlling. She's suffocating me. I wish she'd leave me alone." Eddie can also blame himself. "I'm no good at relationships. I can't give her what she wants. Maybe I just don't know how to love." In his doubt cycles, he wonders, will I ever be happy? Is fulfillment possible? What if I'm not cut up for any of this? In self-pity cycles, he feels like Chandra's victim. She's too demanding. It's not fair. Why do I always end up with needy women? When Eddie indulges in control cycles, he rehashes thoughts about what to share with Chandra and what to withhold in order to manage her reactions to him. If I tell her about my trip, she'll get mad. Better keep it private. I would go into any details about my plans with my family over the holidays, otherwise she'll expect me to invite her. The more Eddie seeks safety and invulnerability by withholding his plans, feelings, needs, desires, and fears from Chandra, the more he fills their relationship field with toxic omissions. Solo exercise attachment style assessment to explore your own attachment style. Reflect on the following pairs of statements. For each pair, select only one statement. Don't choose a statement that reflects how you wish you felt. Choose the most accurate one. If both statements in each pair seem to apply to you equally, sense into which one reflects your deepest emotional needs. Write the letter that represents your selection in your journal or download the PDF worksheet for this exercise from http://www.newhabinger.com/50034. A. I have a need to be closer to my partner than I am. B. I have a need for more space and time to myself in my relationship. A. I wish I knew more about my partner's thoughts, feelings, or inner world. B. Respecting privacy and separateness is a priority for me in relationships. A. I wish we did more fun things together as a couple. B. Having freedom to pursue your own interests helps sustain a relationship. A. It feels like I can handle anything as long as my partner and I stay connected. B. Connection takes a lot of effort and energy, and I'm not always sure I am doing it right. A. I feel most relaxed when my partner reassures me of their commitment. B. I feel most relaxed when there's no pressure to make hard and fast commitments. More answers than B answers suggests you lean toward an anxious attachment style. More B answers than answers suggests you lean toward an avoidant attachment style. Attachment style pairings couples can benefit from understanding their attachment style pairing ASB. Your ASB is the dynamic combination of your two individual attachment styles. It can influence the interplay of your relationship triggers and factor into the frequency and intensity of your rumination cycles. Understandably, conflicts with partners often feel deeply personal. Despite originating in the past, attachment styles still influence you as a couple by feeding into common conflicts that virtually all couples with your ASB also struggle with. By viewing conflicts through the lens of your ASB, you take a step back from disagreements, allow the dust to settle, and focus on how long-standing attachment styles have shaped you as people. When you pursue, cling, or withdraw, your amygdala is still attaching code red signals to bygone dangers and threats. Sometimes these dangers are present with your partner. Now, as an adult, you have resources that weren't available to you as a child. You couldn't choose your early caregivers, but you can and do choose your partner. Can you be with the discomfort evoked by their desire for closeness or distance rather than overthinking it? Anxious avoidant. The anxious avoidant attachment style pairing sets partners up for an unfortunate self-fulfilling prophecy unless they take steps toward a more secure pairing. The anxious partner's rumination cycles are set into motion by their avoidant partner's emotional distancing. Repetitive negative thinking in the anxiously attached partner's mind leaks into the relationship field as aggressive energy, critical words, and controlling behaviors. If the avoidant partner also ruminates, the repetitive negative thinking will leak into the relationship field too. Most fights in the anxious avoidant ASB follow a predictable pattern. The anxious partner wants more closeness, and the avoidant partner shuts down and becomes less responsive. The anxious partner doubles down on blaming, criticism, or self-pity, hoping to re-engage their partner. For the anxious partner, even a negative reaction is better than their avoidant partner's apparent indifference. In a vicious cycle, the avoidant partner withdraws further and barricades themselves internally as their beliefs are confirmed about their boundaries being recklessly disregarded. As a last resort, they may yell, insult their partner, or threaten to leave, hoping to create the space they need to feel safe again by scaring their partner away. The anxious partner's beliefs are thereby confirmed that their partner is mean, selfish, or unreliable. Eddie and Chandra fit the profile for the anxious avoidant ASB. The difference between the icing-covered love cake Chandra dreamed of when her roommate introduced them and the crumbs she gets leaves her love-starved and spinning blame cycles directed mostly at herself. Why am I so insecure? Why can't I be happy? I'm driving him away. What's wrong with me? Eddie senses Chandra's dissatisfaction. Her low-grade, free-floating unhappiness fills the air when they're together like spores of mold. He finds it hard to breathe around her. He tries to spend his free time with friends whenever he can come up with an excuse to do something without her. Over time, Chandra's rumination cycles shift from self-blame to worry and control cycles. She starts going through Eddie's text messages and following his friends on social media platforms, looking for evidence that he's cheating on her. As you practice slow in upcoming chapters, you'll learn to see when your interactions resemble Chandra and Eddie's and how to shift this ASB dynamic. You'll also begin seeing and labeling your thoughts and rumination cycles so you can interrupt them. When you open to vulnerabilities fueling ruminative thoughts, you can be with emotional pain more often rather than sidestepping it in ways that fuel your suffering. You can also welcome your own vulnerabilities as a valuable part of who you are. This makes it easier to respond to triggers calmly and move toward a more secure ASB. Avoidant people with an entrenched avoidant attachment style don't generally pair up for long. Two people with an avoidant dismissive attachment style might go on a few dates, enjoy each other's company for a while, or have a passionate sexual connection, but as soon as things start getting serious, they usually lose interest. They minimize or devalue the importance of commitment, ghost each other, cancel dates, or insist the relationship is too heavy or constricting and they need time apart to figure things out. When people end up in an avoidant ASB, one person usually leans toward avoidant dismissive while their partner leans toward avoidant fearful. In avoidant dismissive attachment, the importance of partnership is minimized, dismissed, or denied. In avoidant fearful attachment, loving feels vulnerable and terrifying since rejection, pain, and loss are associated with vulnerability. Bernadette and Roger begin their relationship in this attachment style pairing. Bernadette is avoidant dismissive, and Roger is avoidant fearful. They live in different cities. They've been seeing each other once a month for a year. Roger wishes he could visit Bernadette more often, though he doesn't bring this up with her. The inner conflict he experiences between his desire for more contact and his fear of vulnerability sets off regular rumination cycles of doubt and worry. Most guys would envy me. We have great sex when I see her, and the rest of the time I'm free as a bird. Or am I lying to myself? Is she toying with me? I know she sees other guys too. At least she's honest. There are no strings attached, so why can't I forget about her? When Roger admits he wants to spend more time with Bernadette, she says, "That's sweet, and I'm flattered, but I told you I don't want anything serious." Avoidant dismissive partners don't usually engage in the same degree of relationship rumination as partners who fit the avoidant, fearful, or anxious attachment styles. This style tends to keep them on the fringes of committed romantic relationships. If they do end up committing to someone, they will often still privately consider themselves single. This is the case with Margot, whom you may remember from chapter 1. She spun control cycles justifying her choice to withhold information from Carrie when she met up with an attractive colleague after work. What many avoidant dismissive partners believe and don't say out loud is, "I'll keep up appearances and fulfill my role, but the real me will remain hidden." Both avoidant dismissive and avoidant fearful partners can develop a more secure attachment style over time. By recognizing their ASB, they can bring attention to their own relationship minimizing or intimacy avoidant behaviors. They can notice and question their ruminative thought cycles rather than blindly accepting them as true. Partners who share this style can explore the deeper fears and needs underlying their distance-seeking thoughts and behaviors rather than buying into the comfortable narrative that "I'm just the way I am." Anxious. Both people in an anxious attachment style pairing cling to each other to create safety. They have a hard time functioning independently. Everyday tasks and responsibilities like shopping or going to work can be challenging for partners in this ASB. When Vince and Ronald first met, they thought they'd found a safe haven in their relationship. They'd both been with avoidant partners before. Loneliness and frustration were the norm for them in relationships. Their mutual attachment was a new experience and a huge relief. But the fears fueling their rumination cycles hadn't gone away. Despite their mutual need for each other, they continued to cling and control, just as they had with their avoidant exes. Ronald's diet became a trigger for Vince. When Ronald binged on processed foods, it set off Vince's rumination cycles of control, blame, and self-pity. He eats so poorly. He has high blood pressure. If he really loved me, he'd be healthier. I need to go through everything in our pantry and throw out all the junk. Why would he do everything he can to change for us? Arguments centered around Vince being paranoid and controlling and Ronald being irresponsible and self-destructive. Ronald also feared something terrible would happen to Vince, which spiked his anxiety. Whenever Vince left for work, images of all the catastrophes that might prevent him from returning home flooded Ronald's mind. He pictured viruses infecting him, car accidents, and renegade gunmen, and then comforted himself by eating fast food and sugary snacks. Vince and Ronald's rumination cycles kept spinning until they started learning how to be with their fear of loss and abandonment rather than defending against it with overthinking. Anxious-secure and an anxious-secure attachment style pairing, it takes time for the anxiously attached partner to develop trust. Repeated positive experiences with a more securely attached partner can tip the scale. If you're the securely attached person in this ASB, remaining patient and understanding will be your challenge. It can be hard to do this while also setting limits and honoring your own needs. The rumination cycles of anxiously attached partners often have little to do with their securely attached partner's experience of themselves. Anxiously attached people will react to their own repetitive, negative thinking when they are out of touch with their partner's actual intentions. An anxiously attached person involved with a securely attached partner can reduce their overthinking by recognizing their triggers. They can also see their rumination cycles. Anxiously attached people can reduce their anxiety by learning how to be with what's happening in the moment and making peace with their own vulnerabilities and attachment needs instead of chronically thinking their way out of discomfort. You'll learn how to do this more often when you're introduced to Slow in chapters 4 through 7. Trudy and Sean fit this ASB profile. Initially, Trudy found Sean boring. She hadn't dated a man with a secure attachment style before. He was even-keeled and confident. Her rumination cycles tended toward doubt and worry. What if I don't love him? What if he doesn't love me? I'm not sure we feel any real attraction. My ex was horrible, but the sex was great. What if I'm settling with Sean? Sure, this is easy and comfortable, but is this love? After 6 months of dating, Trudy broke up with Sean. She told him she wanted more passion. After dating several other men with avoidant attachment styles, though, she realized she'd mistaken adrenaline-fueled drama for passion. When she reached out for Sean, expressed regret for breaking up with him, and told him she wanted to try again, he'd already moved on. Because Sean's expectations in her relationship were more balanced than what Trudy was used to, he hadn't set off the same painful rumination cycle she'd come to associate with love and prior romantic attachments. Secure attachment with Sean had felt weirdly normal. Despite losing Sean, Trudy found herself increasingly attracted to partners with secure attachment styles. She had started to appreciate the safety and trust she'd experienced in an anxious, secure ASB. Avoidant secure in an avoidant secure attachment style pairing, the securely attached person doesn't overreact to the avoidantly attached partner's distancing behaviors in the same way anxiously attached partners do. If the avoidantly attached person finds this new dynamic uncomfortable, they may act out. This can provoke the secure partner to react in anxious, critical, or angry ways that echo the reactions of an anxiously attached partner in the same situation. The avoidantly attached person in this ASB may find themselves experiencing more freedom and trust with a partner who gives them plenty of space while remaining steady and reliable. If they are used to anxiously attached partners threatening to leave and then clinging to them, a securely attached partner's moderate, measured, or rational responses at key moments can lead the avoidantly attached partner to begin revising their fear-based view of love. Over time, as experiences rooted in secure attachment happen more often, contradicting the avoidantly attached partner's fear-based rumination, their style can soften. They may begin to learn and use a wider range of responses in formally triggering moments and situations. This was the case with Wilson and Ella. Since his early teens, Wilson had dated women who wanted more time, attention, closeness, and intimacy than he could give. These relationships had been undermined by rumination cycles, judgment, criticism, and passive-aggressive comments and behaviors. Negatively charged relationship fields crackling with contempt and hostility were all Wilson knew. When he started dating Ella, he dreaded the moment when he would reveal he planned a mountain climbing trip with some friends. Shockingly, Ella's response was, "Have a good time." He thought it was a trick. When he returned, she was curious about his adventure. Wilson braced himself for Ella's resentful actions, snide comments, and love withdrawal. Instead, she remained affectionate. Gradually, Wilson stopped expecting negative reactions whenever he went away and did his own thing. Ella generally felt pretty safe in relationships. She believed Wilson enjoyed her company, but knew he also enjoyed his time alone or with friends. Although she didn't need time away as much as he did, she did enjoy it too on occasion. This didn't mean she was compliant or didn't speak up when Wilson hurt her. When he was inconsiderate or irresponsible, she expressed her feelings directly and asked him to adjust his behavior. She also made it a point to regularly let him know she genuinely appreciated him. At first, Wilson feared Ella didn't really love him. He thought love and possessiveness were the same thing. Being loved rather than controlled felt unfamiliar. It took time to trust that Ella wasn't going to shame him for regularly seeking out his own space. Although he continued to plan trips alone and with friends, his bandwidth for intimacy with Ella increased. He relaxed into the safety of their relationship field and started to enjoy low-drama loving. Secure in the secure attachment style pairing, partners can be both independent and dependent. Partners see themselves as allies who are on the same team. They don't hide or disguise their vulnerabilities. They acknowledge and voice fears, needs, and once they work to understand their partner's perspective, they willingly adapt and grow the relationship field of partners in this ASB supports interdependence, healthy boundaries, and safety. Expressive, toxic omission, and energetic leakages lessen over time. Partners with this ASB are less prone to overthinking their relationship because the way they feel, express themselves, and act is in sync with their attachment needs. Most of the time, they don't let their fears of being judged or rejected overpower their commitment to voicing what's true for them. They also don't use honesty as an excuse for being unkind or disrespectful. They can communicate directly with one another and share needs, fears, and vulnerabilities rather than getting sidetracked by rumination cycles. When something sets them off, secure partners don't brood too long about what their partner did wrong or what they could have done better. They see their partner's errors and flaws, but they also look at their contribution to problems. Choose your ASB adventure in all the attachment style pairs. There are 3 possible outcomes. 1. Partners move toward or sustain a secure attachment dynamic. 2. Partners move in the direction of a more turbulent or detached dynamic. 3. One or both partners leave and the relationship ends. In a secure ASB, both partners trust love. Maybe not 100%, maybe not always, but mostly and often. They can relax into the uncertainties inherent in relationships. Rather than clinging to a moment of happiness or to an idealized partner, they work with and accept the ebb and flow of their own and their partner's changing moods and circumstances. Nothing stays the same. Conflicts and disappointments are a part of loving. They give up the fantasy of achieving a fixed state of unchanging, eternal bliss. Instead of avoiding discomfort, partners in secure ASB get better at coping with discomfort, on their own and as a couple. They make conscious communication a habit, speaking and listening honestly and respectfully as the rule rather than the exception. They repair after conflicts, recognize their part in disconnections, learn from mistakes, and do what they need to do to move past grievances. Partners in a secure ASB navigate togetherness and separation within a relationship field where interdependence, healthy boundaries, and safety are priorities. Research shows attachment styles aren't absolute. Sometimes they're even relationship-specific. Wilson and Ella grew into a more secure ASB. Through her experiences with Sean, Trudy's anxious style shifted towards secure. One study conducted at the University of Ottawa examining participants' attachments across a range of relationships, parents, friends, and romantic partners suggests that attachment patterns can be context-specific. Karen et al. 2012. Try visualizing attachment styles as a spectrum with secure in the middle and anxious and avoidant on either end. Your position on the spectrum may be a little different in different relationships. Should you recognize you're on one end while your partner is on the other end, each of you can take steps to move toward more secure middle ground. Although they're not set in stone, attachment styles are also not fleeting. They are your internal working models of relationships reinforced through countless interactions with others, often over decades. Unlike passing moods or preferences, they won't come and go easily. Don't expect them to change overnight. All patterns transform when new, secure interpersonal experiences repeatedly contradict them and establish a new pattern. As you shift across the attachment spectrum, be compassionate with yourself and your partner. Neither of you chose your attachment style. It's how you learn to cope with pain and fear. The attachment style you developed was the best and sometimes only option for sustaining connection with people you needed as a child. You related with the caregivers you depended on for your physical and emotional survival by clinging, pursuing, minimizing your own needs, meeting these needs indirectly, or blocking intrusive connection however you could. Shifting your style along the attachment spectrum will take time. How much time will depend on the personal healing work you do and the support you get. Don't fall into rumination cycles about it when your ASB patterns resurface. Being aware of your ASB is a step toward shifting into more secure territory. Whatever ASB describes your joint styles best, celebrate your willingness to acknowledge your pairing and take small steps to change your dynamic. Consider secure attachment a practice, not a destination. Growth occurs over time. It's rarely linear. Whenever you're separated from your partner and you manage to soothe yourself, it's a win. Whenever you negotiate anxiety-provoking periods of closeness or distance calmly and kindly, it's another win. Whenever you let go of clinging or avoiding, even if only for a few breaths, that's also a win. Your relationship history doesn't have to dictate how you act now. What you see as a failure in the moment may be a win in the making if you can step back and take the long view. Joint exercise, our working ASB review the attachment style assessment both of you completed earlier in this chapter. Write down your attachment styles separated by dash. This is your working ASB, a shorthand for the underlying needs and fears that clash, at times, and set off rumination cycles. Use your ASB as an awareness tool. Revise it when your dynamic changes. Reflect on the following questions or share your answers. Would your partner refer to the speaker and listener responsibilities in the introduction if you need a refresher on creating safety and supporting connection? What's one way that understanding your ASB could help when a threat link gets activated, especially by your desire for more closeness or more space? How can keeping your ASB in mind help you take conflicts less personally? What's one thing you can do to move toward a more secure ASB? In this chapter, you learned about the relationship field. If unchecked, rumination pollutes it, leading to devitalization, boundary failures, and anxiety. Reducing rumination, on the other hand, supports interdependence, healthy boundaries, and safety in your field. You've been introduced to 3 basic attachment styles: anxious, avoidant, and secure, and 5 attachment style pairings: ASB, anxious, avoidant, 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 anxious, secure, avoidant, secure, and secure, secure. ASB factor into the frequency and intensity of rumination. Although they don't change overnight, you can develop a more secure ASB. In the next chapter, you'll explore one of the most influential factors in successfully reducing overthinking, your mindset. Quick question: if you could ask the author one thing, what would it be? Comment below, I'm curious. Chapter 3. The foundational mindset of slow. Our mindset influences our attitudes, beliefs, and values. Conversely, our attitudes, beliefs, and values influence our mindset. A difference in mindset between 2 couples can be what accounts for the same crisis impacting them in opposite ways. An affair, for example, can lead partners into recurring cycles of blame, attack, and counterattack with devastating consequences. But there are also partners whose mindset allows them to view an affair over time with a solemn kind of gratitude, despite the emotional pain thinking about it may continue evoking in them. Couples can change their mindset in order to overcome sexual blocks and revitalize their relationship when passion has dwindled. A new mindset may help them renew their commitment to each other rather than living parallel lives when their children have grown up and left the house. A crisis can challenge partners to show up for themselves and each other vulnerably, see what's true for them, and reconnect with their priorities as a couple. Their mindset is one of the most influential factors in reducing relationship rumination. It shapes how you handle and perceive setbacks. It determines whether or not you commit to new practices, tools, and techniques, or whether you fall back on old, familiar ways of thinking and coping. Your mindset will shape the successes you experience and the way you perceive obstacles and disappointments as you learn and start using the practice of interrupting rumination through seeing, labeling, opening, and welcoming. A fixed mindset psychologist Carol Dweck 2007 proposes that people operate from one of two primary mindsets, fixed and growth. If you have a fixed mindset, you view people and situations as fixed and unchanging. You see the world a certain way. No matter what people do or don't do, you believe they stay the same. Fixed mindsets reinforce beliefs like I'm just the way I am. Conversely, beliefs like I'm just the way I am reinforce fixed mindsets. Either way, with a fixed mindset, you believe things don't change and life is the way I see it. None of us assumes a fixed mindset out of ill will. Nobody wants to inhibit their own growth. At the same time, if you've developed a fixed mindset, it will reinforce black and white thinking and inflexible expectations of yourself, others, and your relationship. Even though you may not have intentionally set your mind this way, it's your responsibility to reset it to support new growth. Why do I need to change? What's the point of questioning my beliefs? There's a good reason I see the world the way I do. Is this really the right approach? It's not uncommon to experience doubt cycles when you open yourself to a growth mindset. When partners with fixed mindsets try to learn something new, they may feel confused and threatened. Someone who has mostly approached life with a fixed mindset isn't going to instantly let go of the power of strength and control that seems to accompany being an expert, knowing what's right or having the answers. Opening up to a new approach that involves not knowing it is a process. If you can be with the doubt cycles that surface while you shift your mindset rather than getting lost in the content of your thinking, you'll support yourself in opening up to a new, more flexible way of perceiving things. Your default mindset may be fixed if you view people and situations as fixed and unchanging. You have little faith in growth and self-improvement. You see things in binary terms, people either can or can't do things. You believe individual people as well as entire categories of people have unchanging traits or characteristics that shape how they behave and who they are at their core. For example, rich people are bad, men can't be nurturing, and neighbors are nosy. When considering making a change, you think, it's too late, or it's too hard. Many of your views fit in opposing categories, right or wrong, good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. When your partner asks you to change, you dismiss it with, I'm the way I am. When your partner tries to change, you dismiss it with, they are the way they are. You view small positive changes as too little or irrelevant. A growth mindset helps you see possibilities in difficult situations. It sets you up to recognize and enjoy small wins, those moments when you do something new that supports positive change. Over time, small wins accumulate to make a big difference. Seeing learning opportunities in so-called problems, errors, failures, mistakes, and challenges is the essence of learning. Because undoing rumination isn't a goal you accomplish with a one-time flip of a switch, you'll do better when you can enjoy small wins along the way without getting hung up on inevitable setbacks and disappointments. Shifting into a growth mindset makes it easier to practice slow, especially when you actively work on being patient, curious, and non-attached. This is because practicing slow involves being willing to let go of whatever it is you think you know about a situation or experience in favor of discovering what you're not fully aware of yet. You may already approach life with a growth mindset if you see learning opportunities in so-called mistakes, setbacks, and problems. You believe both you and your partner can change to improve your relationship. You aspire to interdependence, healthy boundaries, and safety with your partner. You believe all people are capable of growing at any point in their life. You see potential for positive change in difficult situations. You rarely see situations, people, and events in binary terms. You appreciate how complex people and situations can be. You value small positive changes as a win and celebrate them. Shifting into a growth mindset makes it easier to practice slow because it primes you for learning and discovery. It prepares you to accept that people and situations are more complex than they may appear, and you trust that lasting change unfolds organically even as you invite and support it with ordinary, everyday choices. Because you're not expecting immediate success on your terms and timeline, you're less likely to give up on growth prematurely. Solo exercise, my small wins are moments when you do something that supports positive change even when it's uncomfortable for you. A small win is choosing to get grounded in one breath rather than reacting to a surly tone you've picked up on in your partner's voice. It's getting genuinely curious about your partner's frustration instead of losing yourself in defensiveness. It's noticing that when your partner doesn't replace the toilet paper roll, it's a trigger for you. It's identifying one of your rumination cycles. It's choosing to be with an internal experience rather than chronically thinking about what has triggered you. In your journal, write my small wins at the top of a page. Underneath, write the word to date at the beginning of 5 or 6 lines in a column moving down the page. Then, record a few of your recent small wins after the word a day. For example, you might write, "Today I noticed that when no one changes the toilet paper roll, it's a trigger for me," or "Today I recognized I slipped into a self-pity cycle when my wife went biking with friends." Add to this list every day and read it regularly. For a PDF worksheet of this exercise, go to http://www.newharboner.com/50034. Checking your mind's most lasting psychological change follows the 2 steps forward, 1 step back model. With a fixed mindset, you may misinterpret the 1 step back moments as failures. But what if every step back is actually an essential prelude to your next step forward? As you work through this book, check your mindset whenever you get stuck. If you feel frustrated, reread the list of characteristics of a fixed mindset. Do any items on the list describe how you're perceiving your progress? Reread the characteristics of a growth mindset. Are you willing to trust how your experience is unfolding so you can learn or discover something new? You may need to embrace a growth mindset many times as you open up to not knowing and to changing in small increments, especially when you begin the slow process outlined in chapters 4 through 7. Being patient and curious will help you shift out of a fixed mindset. So will letting go of the belief that growth must happen as you envision it and on your timeline. Patient sex educator Emily Nagoski 2015 calls the mental feedback loop between what we want and how soon we expect to get it the monitor. Drawing on the research of Charles Carver and Michael Shire 2012-2013, Nagoski proposes that this internal monitor is satisfied when you reach your goals on your own timeline and frustrated when you don't. Your monitor assesses how close or far you are from your desires and whether or not you believe your efforts are being rewarded quickly enough. It reacts to how long it takes you to reach your goals in comparison with how long you think it should take. Although it's normal to want things when you want them, if you can't adjust your internal monitor when obstacles arise, you are more likely to give up on your goals prematurely out of frustration. Personal growth can be stressful for people with overzealous monitors. People who want to improve their relationship may interpret their seeming lack of progress as a failure. But changing the dynamics in your relationships as well as changing your own mental patterns isn't the same thing as changing your wardrobe or your job. Inflexible goals and timelines undermine progress. When it comes to being with your own vulnerabilities and fears, you can't coerce change. You can't pry yourself open like an oyster and force your unconscious to give you its pearls. If you want to reduce rumination and nurture love, patience is important. Most lasting change takes time. Being patient with your own change process requires you to let go while also holding on. Learning to be patient as you practice slow will balance the urgency of wanting everything to improve for the better ASAP with respect for your own organic process. Think of the psychological growth you are inviting and supporting through a growth mindset as more of a movement toward growth than a Jack and the Beanstalk, overnight miracle. Being patient means accepting life as it is, at least for now. It's a way of giving yourself, your partner, and your relationship credit. It helps recalibrate your monitor and adjust for unforeseen obstacles. It finds things to celebrate along the way as you progress. Patience keeps you grounded where you are while also trusting the process to carry you where you're going. When you have a hard time being patient, your mantra is, "I can trust life to unfold in my own best interest in its own timing." Try using this mantra when you feel impatient. Curiosity, choose to be curious and you will naturally cultivate a growth mindset. This is because when you're curious, you put your automatic assumptions about people, places, things, experiences, and events on hold. You're willing to experience the discomfort of not knowing in the service of learning. If you allow your own natural curiosity to rise, whether it's about internal experiences and vulnerabilities or about your partner, you invite and support discovery. When you're curious, you value learning as an end in itself. It's not just a means to an end. If curiosity were a prescription drug, you'd see ads like this one on television, subway platforms, computer pop-ups, and highway billboards. Curiosity instantly relieves pain and tension created by self-judgment, chronic blame, hopelessness, despair, black and white thinking, lack of empathy for others, and exhausting conflicts in your romantic relationships. Millions of people across the world have discovered the limitless uses of curiosity to reduce a range of symptoms from mild confusion and depression to denial and destructive behaviors.
Thanks for listening to this audiobook so far. We want to be compliant with the copyright law. So this will be the end of this audiobook. If you want to have access to the full content, consider to be part of our Patreon membership, and if you find this book interesting, check the link below to purchase it.